Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Beast Control. I'm really not a master of training. Chapter 81. After eating the Chinese food delivered by Fatian, Li Qian patted his shoulder and comforted him. Okay, next, your task is to deliver 3 meals to me on time. Don't think too much about other things. Just wait and harvest your own blue-scaled dragon. When he came here this time, he had only one goal, to evolve all the koi that could evolve at this stage. In addition to Tan Tu, Jin Yi, Jin and Jin San, he also brought 10 koi fish. These 10 koi fish were aimed at evolving into frost-fire salamanders. These 10 koi carp were the 10 koi carps that performed well after being devastated by Mr. An's sun-eating tiger and Tai Lao's wind thunder lion. I brought them to this place just to see how much their evolution success rate could be improved after training in intimidation skills. The recent events in Lingshui City have made Li Qian quite uneasy, and he has a vague premonition in his heart. This is why he is so anxiously preparing to evolve. The more knowledge he has, the more security he will have. After completing his food delivery work dutifully, Fatian did not stay long and quickly left the water slide. Looking at Fatian's leaving figure, Li Qian's eyes suddenly became sharp. The next period of time, until tomorrow morning, is very important to him. Whether all the 14 koi brought here can evolve depends on this period of time. As for the results of evolution, Li Qian did not expect all to be successful. The 4 koi that are aiming to evolve into the blue-scaled dragon should not be a big problem. The other 10 koi that are aiming to evolve into the frost-fire demon salamander is hard to say. Shaking his head and collecting his mind, Li Qian continued to start the unfinished work in the morning, focusing on the ground. There, the fire array and the frost array have been arranged, and they just need the last step to connect them together. This step, linked together, is both simple and complex. Simple because the step is very simple, there is only one step. Complex because this step is very delicate and requires strong mental control. Li Qian carefully controlled the fire array and the frost array, activating them initially. As the arrays were activated, the energy gradually merged toward the center eye. This step, when I first watched Niu Endeavor perform it, seemed very simple. However, Li Qian knew in his heart that simplicity was just the appearance, while the core was very complex and meticulous, and there was no room for sloppiness. 2 completely opposite energies began to merge into the center of the formation. Li Qian's mental power was highly concentrated. He hoped that he could succeed once and for all, but the next moment, snapped. There was a slight crackling sound. Immediately afterwards, whether it was the fire array on the left or the frost array on the right, the bursts of blue-white light and red-red light emitted were extinguished. Alas, Li Qian sighed helplessly. Although I really wanted to complete the arrangement of the frostfire array at once, unfortunately, this first attempt ended in failure. Arriving at the central formation eye at the fusion point, Li Qian dug out the formation eye. It was an energy jade talisman. Different from ordinary energy jade talismans, although this energy jade talisman is also carved from energy stone, its formation pattern is different from the front and back. The formation patterns carved on the front are complex but rough, the formation patterns carved on the back are fine but simple. 2 completely different styles of formation patterns appear on the front and back sides of an energy jade talisman, which happens to be part of the fire array and the frost array. Whether it is a fire array or a frost array, if it is formed alone, 15 jade talismans can complete the arrangement. But if you want to blend with each other and form a combined array, you need this 16th array pattern. It can be said that whether the frost and fire array can be completed, this array I jade talisman is extremely important. It is the hub and key node where the 2 magic circles blend. Li Qian already had a bad premonition in his heart. In a situation like this, when there was a popping sound, Niu Fengjin had mentioned to him before that it was a sign that the formation layout had failed. When he dug out the jade talisman of the formation eye, he found that, as he had guessed, the jade talisman had been broken in the middle and split into 2 pieces. Although I have been mentally prepared and know that it may be difficult to successfully arrange it at one time, when failure does happen, I still feel a little upset. I have prepared 3 array eyes in total, and I don't know if I can complete the arrangement. Li Qian glanced at the broken jade talisman, frowned, and couldn't help but mutter to himself. While he was speaking, he had already taken out the second formation eye jade talisman. He prepared a total of 3 array I jade talismans. It's not that he doesn't want to prepare more, it's actually that the success rate of this thing is a bit touching. When I first saw the outline of New Endeavor, I thought it was very simple, just 3 times, 5 times and 2 times, and it was done. Unexpectedly, it fell on me and I tried 30 times before I got 3 pieces. The 10% success rate made him stop thinking about continuing. Moreover, he felt that there were 3 jade talismans with the formation eyes, which should be able to support the formation of the frost and fire formation. Now it seems that it is a bit unreliable. After thinking about it, he finally did not continue with the arrangement. Instead, he took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. Forget it, let's ask Brother Niu first. The person he called on his mobile phone was none other than Niu Fenjin. With his knowledge of the frost-fire array, he should be able to give him some advice. Thinking like this, the call was dialed quickly, and a familiar voice came to mind. Classmate Li Qian, your last class will probably have to wait for a while. Li Qian heard that he was still thinking about joking with him, and thought to himself that it seemed that his situation was not very bad. Don't worry about the class. When you have time, you can come over anytime. Li Qian smiled and said, if you don't have time, you can come over. He then asked with concern, how is your current condition? Did the doctor say when you can be discharged? On the other end of the phone, Niu Fenjin's somewhat bitter voice came, I can't die, but I won't be able to get out in a short time. Next, the two chatted for a few more words. Feeling that time was almost up, he didn't delay anymore and went straight to the topic. He described the situation he encountered to Niu Fenjin, who thought for a moment and responded, generally speaking, there are only 2 situations when there is a popping sound. One is that the jade talisman is the eye of the formation is not up to standard and cannot carry the intensity of the energy surge during the blend. The second situation is that there is a problem with the mental power control and it is not activated at the same time, resulting in fire attribute energy and ice attribute energy. They didn't arrive at the same time. In this way, it is like roasting it with fire first and then pouring it with ice water. It would be strange if the energy jade talisman does not explode. Quote. After listening to Niu Fenjin analyze the reasons for the failure for about 5 minutes, and listening to him state his suggestions for improvement for 3 minutes, Li Qian felt that his confidence was back. After recalling Niu Fenjin's words, combining them with the knowledge he had mastered, and rehearsing them in his mind, he took a deep breath and took action again. Burying the second array I jade talisman in the center, he once again carefully communicated with the fire array and the frost array. With a thought, the mental power was divided into 2 streams and injected into the 2 magic circles at the same time. Under Li Qian's unblinking gaze, the fire array and the frost array lit up with red and blue-white light almost at the same time. The light spread quickly, and it didn't take long before it merged in the center. This time, he observed it very carefully. The 2 rays of light should have entered the formation eye position at the same time. This is what Li Qian felt after analysis. It was precisely because of this failure that led to the first failure. Li Qian's eyes were locked, and as the iconic dark brown light appeared, he couldn't help but let out a long breath. Finally succeeded. Without hesitation, after seeing that the array was successfully deployed, Li Qian directly cut off the input of mental power. With the recovery of mental power, he felt slightly tired and at the same time, the magic circle immediately dimmed. After a successful energy blend, the frost and fire array in front of you was completely successfully arranged. The next step is stimulation. This step is no longer a problem for Li Qian. Even if it's not a perfect match, it's not that far off. After setting up the frost and fire array, Li Qian shifted his attention and focused his attention on the water slide next to him. Now, whether it is the blue-scaled dragon or the frost-fire salamander, the preparations for evolution have been completed, and then the official evolution will begin. He planned to start with the blue-scale Jiao. After all, this evolution was relatively simple and not difficult. After thinking for a moment, he chose Jinyi as his evolutionary target. After all, this is the first time that the artificial waterfall created by the water slide has been used. It is not yet 100% certain whether it can be used to evolve the koi carp into the green-scaled dragon. Although Li Qian is confident about this, he cannot guarantee at 100% that there is no risk at all. so this first evolved koi must not be Fatty An's charcoal head. After much thought, he felt that Jinyi was more suitable because among the remaining 3 koi, its conditions in all aspects were relatively comprehensive. Whether it's climbing a waterfall or jumping into a fish, your skill proficiency is pretty good. After making some calculations, Li Qian no longer wasted time. He went to the pool at the bottom of the water slide and informed Jinyi of his idea through Kizai. Jinyi learned that he was the first koi to evolve. He was very happy and excited and jumped out of the water. Seeing this, Li Qian smiled, and then waved, calling Jinyi to the edge of the pool, took out a bag of dragon bone powder, and fed it. As the dragon bone powder was fed, a faint light of evolution began to appear on Jinyi's body. Seeing this, Li Qian immediately pointed to the water slide next to him. Jinyi knew what Li Qian meant through the 7th boss's translator early on, so when he pointed to the location of the water slide, he took action instantly. Seeing Jinyi rushing towards the water slide without hesitation, Li Qian didn't waste any time and rushed out. He came to the back of the water slide, pressed it, and arrows and numbers immediately appeared on it. This is an elevator that already exists in the water slide. It can go directly to the top of the slide. When the water slide was renovated this time, Mr. An also ordered people to renovate the elevator. Li Qian takes the elevator and can go directly to the top of the water slide. As the elevator continued to rise, Li Qian's figure appeared at the top of the water slide after a moment. He looked down and soon saw a water line going upstream. The speed was not very fast, but the rhythm was good. On average, it can rise 2 meters in about 1 minute. Jinyi's qualifications are very good, and Li Qian is very confident in its evolution, but objectively speaking, its talent should not be as good as Kizai's. However, the climbing speed shown now is no less than that of Kizai back then. From this, it can be seen that the difficulty of the water slide cannot be compared with the 100-foot waterfall in Yunwu Mountain. The climb was very smooth. The speed did not drop slightly until about 50 meters. When it reached 80 meters, it dropped further. On average, it could only climb about half a meter per minute. The further up you go, the slower it gets. Although the difficulty has dropped significantly, climbing is still so difficult. From this, it can also be seen that there is still a difference between koi and koi. Kizai and Aaron are both first class in terms of qualifications and character. Li Qian stood at the top of the water slide, staring coldly with a solemn expression. He was silent, like a piece of wood, with no emotion in his eyes. Such a reaction put great pressure on Jinyi, who was climbing upstream. Under the gaze of the 7th boss and the 6th boss, and under the cold gaze of the master, if I don't succeed, I may never be able to lift the fish's head again. It secretly made up its mind and mobilized all the strength in its body to continue sprinting. Victory was right in front of it and it must not give up. Finally, it rushed to the top position, and then jumped suddenly into the air. Li Qian had quick eyes and quick hands. He seized the opportunity and threw the wind chime fruit. As the wind chime fruit was held in Jinyi's mouth and then swallowed, the light of evolution in it reached its peak in an instant. The light of evolution fell, and Jinyi also fell into the pool. The next moment, the faucet broke out of the water, and a brand new green-scaled dragon appeared in Li Qian's sight. Seeing this, Li Qian nodded with satisfaction. He did not immediately put Jinyi back into the beast control ball. Instead, after checking its attribute information, he allowed Kizai and Xiaolu to take it and join the guard team. This is also a reward for completing its evolution. After leaping over the dragon gate, it will naturally feel free and unrestrained. At this moment, let alone being able to be truly carefree and unrestrained, there is still no problem in letting him have fun. Moreover, by observing Jinyi's attributes, Li Qian discovered that it was only at the elite 2nd level, not the theoretical elite 3rd level when Kizai originally evolved. It can also be seen from this that the evolution location was changed from the Beizong waterfall in the Yunwu Mountain scenic area to this water slide, which had some impact on the evolved blue scale Jiao. However, considering that the Beizong waterfall always belongs to others, every time it evolves, it depends on the person's face. Yunwu Mountain is also a mountain as its name suggests. It is full of mist. I don't know what secrets are hidden, but this water slide is completely under my control. Comparing the two, Li Qian felt that this place was more fragrant and more suitable for him. As for these slight effects, it is not a big problem and should be able to make up for it through acquired training. Perhaps they were stimulated by the evolution of Jin Yi. After all, right in front of him, in the pond, the remaining 13 koi fish all began to swim excitedly. Each one of them looked eager to try. Among them, Tan-tu is the most active, hoping that he will be the next koi to evolve. In fact, according to Li Qian's plan, the next koi to evolve is indeed it. After taking a short rest and adjusting for a moment, the evolution work continued. Li Qian informed Tan-tu of his thoughts through Kizai. When the latter learned that the next koi to evolve was himself, he almost jumped out of the water with excitement and kept guruling and spitting bubbles. After its mood calmed down a little, Li Qian called it to the edge of the pool. Without any surprise, as he drank a bag of dragon bone powder, Tan-tu also followed in Jin Yi's footsteps, and his body began to emit a faint light of evolution. This marks the official beginning of the evolutionary process belonging to Tan-tu. Li Qian stretched out his hand, and Tan-tu, who had already witnessed Jin Yi's evolution, immediately took action without any hesitation. It was so fast that its body instantly turned into a line of water and rushed to the bottom of the water slide. Li Qian felt Tan-tu's enthusiasm, but he was not happy about it. Being too positive and using too much force was not a good thing. Seeing it rushing to the bottom of the water slide at extremely fast speeds without any effort, Li Qian couldn't help but feel a faint worry in his heart. I am afraid that he will be unable to succeed, and those who can walk 100 steps will be half 90. However, he did not express these concerns verbally, but stared silently without saying anything. Just like when Jin Yi evolved, Li Qian walked to the elevator after seeing Tan-tu rushing towards the water slide. As the elevator started, not long after, his figure appeared again at the top of the slide on the water. He looked down at Tan-tu, who was swimming upstream. His eyes seemed to be able to see the impetuous Tan-tu inside through the water curtain. Yes, at this moment, Tan-tu gave him the feeling of just 2 words, impetuous. It seems that it can't wait to complete its evolution and become a majestic blue-scaled dragon flying high in the sky. After so many evolutions, Li Qian has accumulated a lot of experience. He knows very well that if he continues to maintain this mentality, this seemingly sure evolution may not be a success for him. Li Qian thought so, and things seemed to be developing in this direction. The charcoal head went upstream and kept climbing, but when it reached about 90 meters, it was obviously unable to move forward. The end of the force. Li Qian shook his head helplessly when he saw Tan-tu, who was still trying to hold on and not let himself be washed away by the current. When things have reached this point, the situation has become very obvious. Although there are only 5 or 6 meters left before reaching the top, these 5 or 6 meters will be an extremely difficult hurdle for Tan-tu to overcome at this moment. About 90 meters down the water slide, Tan-tu was still insisting, but whether it was Kizai, Xiaoliu, or Jin Yi, who had just successfully evolved, they all saw something was wrong. This guy is too eager for quick success. After murmuring softly, Li Qian had already made a judgment on Tan-tu. The facts were just as he had judged. After holding on for a moment, even though he was very reluctant, Tan-tu still fell down, was wrapped in the current, and fell into the pool below. The light of evolution all over his body was extinguished in an instant. Tan-tu's failure was expected by Li Qian, but it surprised Jin-er and Jin-san. Whether it is Jin-er or Jin-san, they know deep down that if they want to rank their qualifications, Tan-tu is undoubtedly above them. Li Qian sighed when he saw this scene, and then took the elevator down to the top of the water slide and came to the side of the pool. Tan-tu, you are too impatient. You rush forward with a lot of strength, throwing all my instructions out of the sky. You waste too much energy in the front, which makes it difficult to continue and you lose before the finish line. Quote. Li Qian didn't blame it too much, he just analyzed it calmly. Of course, the meaning of beating was definitely indispensable. Seeing that the whole fish of Tan-tu sank to the bottom of the water, he seemed very sad and a little ashamed. Li Qian continued to speak and said with relief, summarize the lessons of this failure and work hard to recover. I will give it to you again tomorrow morning. Your chance to evolve. After the words fell, he suddenly turned his head and looked at Jin-er and Jin-san, who were swimming next to Tan-tu. What I just said is also for you too. I hope you will guard against arrogance and impetuosity and take one step at a time. Now, Jin, it's your turn. Without wasting time, Li Qian called Jin directly and fed it dragon bone powder as well. On the road of evolution, beast masters are of course very important, but what is more important is the pet beast itself. Li Qian has done everything he can. Next, he can only look at the pet beast himself. Just like Tantu, it couldn't reach the top of the water slide, and Li Qian could only do nothing. He couldn't replace this step, and he had to complete it himself after all. With the light of evolution emanating from his body, Jin learned the lesson from Tantu's failure and did not rush forward, but quietly waited for Li Qian's instructions. After seeing Li Qian reaching out, it took action decisively and swam directly towards the water slide. The speed was not very fast, but not slow either. Seeing that Jin and Tantu were moving forward steadily, Li Qian felt relieved. He came to the elevator again, took the elevator, rose to the top of the water slide, and waited quietly. Perhaps Tantu's failure example was too profound and vivid. It happened right in front of his eyes, a few minutes ago, and Jin was obviously a lot more cautious. Its climbing speed is much less than that of Tantu, but the rhythm is very good, and it is going upstream firmly, and it seems that there is still strength left. It wasn't until it reached about 95 meters that I felt it was going all out. Moreover, its all-out effort was different from Tantu's all-out effort. It was obvious that it was still holding on to its energy and was not at the end of its rope. Finally, with the last bit of strength, it jumped up and rushed out of the top of the water slide. Li Qian took a long breath, and at the same time concentrated his attention, not daring to be careless at all, and threw the wind chime fruit with all his strength. Jin leapt in midair, accurately grasped the wind chime fruit in his mouth, and then swallowed it without hesitation. As the wind chime fruit was swallowed, the light of evolution on Jin body reached its peak in an instant, shining on the water slide. The glory fades and the dragon emerges. In the end, Jin successfully evolved into a blue-scaled dragon without any danger. Jin's success made Li Qian smile and feel reassured. Jin 1 and 2 were successful, and he was not worried about Jin 3 next. Because among the 3 koi, it has the highest qualifications. If both koi 1 and 2 can succeed, it will have no problem. In addition, with Tantu's failure in the past, Jin-san would not dare to be careless, so its probability of success should not be low. The fact was just as he guessed. About an hour and a half later, Jin-san also completed his evolution. The evolution process of the 4 koi took almost an entire afternoon. When the evolution was completed, it was already sunset and dusk. He glanced at Tantu, who was not accompanying the other koi that were aiming to evolve into the frost-fire salamander, nor was he accompanying Jinyi, Jin and Jin-san, who had completed their evolution and transformed into the blue-scale dragon. It looked disappointed. Li Qian spoke again and comforted, "Be prepared. In 10 hours, the evolution will continue. Next time, I hope you can learn from your experience and lessons, and guard against arrogance and impatience." After that, he no longer hesitated, dialed a number and went out to notify Fatian. "It's time to deliver dinner." Fatian trotted over again, still holding the food box in his hand, playing the role of a food delivery boy dutifully. Just as he got closer, he suddenly froze on the spot. Because besides Li Qian's Kizai and Xiaoliu, he also saw 3 majestic green-scaled dragons. These 3 green-scaled dragons were either lying down, entrenched, or suspended in the air, with different postures. Fatian's eyes almost dropped when he saw them. Even though the Frostfire Salamander has higher racial potential and more powerful skills, it still can't be compared to the blue-scale dragon in terms of appearance alone. It has to be said that the pet beasts of eastern dragons are very handsome, far beyond what the large lizards of western dragons can compare to. Looking at the majestic Jinyi, Jin and Jin-san, Fatian couldn't help but frown. He was very sure that these 3 green-scaled dragons were not his charcoal heads. Because if Tantu has evolved, he will definitely get evolutionary feedback. But neither his body nor his spirit received the slightest feedback, which was enough to show that Tantu had not completed his evolution. There is no reason why the 3 koi in the breeding base have successfully evolved and his own charcoal head cannot evolve. Thinking about this, a bad premonition arose in his heart. "Qianzi, where is my charcoal head?" Fatian placed the food box in front of Li Qian and asked eagerly. Li Qian took the food box, smiled awkwardly, and then pointed to the pool not far away. I don't even know how to explain this to you. The same evolution method, the same evolution location, I even specially arranged Tan2 in the middle order, but the result is, the 3 koi in the breeding base successfully evolved into blue-scaled dragons, while Tan2 failed. After hearing this, Fatian was stunned for a moment. Why does this matter sound so weird? You know, among the 4 koi that evolved this time, in theory, Tan2 has the highest potential. But at this moment, this kind of transfer happened. To be honest, if it hadn't happened to him, Li Qian would have doubted whether the trainer was treating him differently. Seeing that Fatian didn't react, he was obviously surprised by the result. Li Qian kept talking and continued, Tan2 is too impatient. During the evolution, when he climbed to more than 90 meters, his strength unable to survive, he fell down. Now, it's in the pool. Go over and comfort it. Li Qian had not told Fatian that the failure of evolution might have a certain impact on the racial potential of the blue-scaled dragon. So after listening to his explanation, the latter felt neither sad nor sad. Of course, it was inevitable that he would feel a little disappointed. There was no doubt about the authenticity of Li Qian's words, and there was no need for the latter to lie. Fatian quickly walked over and came to the edge of the pool. When Li Qian saw this scene, he smiled and ignored the exchange between Fatian and Tan2. He opened the food box without hesitation and ate happily. Looking at the food in the food box, he nodded with satisfaction. Just judging from the appearance, it can be seen that these meals must be made by mother. I cook all my favorite dishes. Just as night was about to fall and it was time to get stuck at dinner, just as Li Qian was feasting, on the other side, in Lingshui City, various riots gradually began. On the main road in the city, a taxi suddenly lost control and crashed into another car next to it. Boom! The 2 cars collided together. Although the car looked more expensive and high-end, it was knocked out by the taxi and fell straight into the store next to it. The glass door of the store instantly shattered to the ground. Dross. Ah, woo, help, help, someone come and help me. How is this going? Car accident, there's a car accident, call the police and emergency number quickly. Quote. In the car and in the storefronts on the street, shouts, cries, and discussions instantly intertwined into a chaotic decibel. The place was a mess. Many people took action after getting over the initial confusion and summoned their own pet beasts. In this world, it cannot be said that the power is entirely attributed to itself, but because of the existence of pet beasts, human beings are at least not as weak as the earth in Li Qian's previous life. Someone summoned a water beast, and the water gun shot out, extinguishing the flames on the car. Someone summoned a powerful pet beast, opened the twisted car door with his bare hands, and rescued a father and son trapped inside. Just when people were rejoicing that although the father and son were slightly injured, there was no danger of life, the out-of-control driverless taxi suddenly made a noise on the street, and then, in full view of everyone, it was decomposed and reassembled, and in the blink of an eye, it had reassembled into an adult-sized robot. This is car robot. This taxi is actually a car robot. Quote. When people saw this scene, they all made a sound of astonishment. Then, they saw something was wrong. The car robot that suddenly appeared suddenly stretched out its hand and condensed a bundle of gun barrels. Someone recognized the skill of the car robot and shouted, "Everyone, get out of the way, this is a crazy shooting skill." Although this skill is not very powerful, it has wide coverage and long duration. It may be a bit reluctant to deal with powerful beast masters, but it is easy to deal with ordinary beast masters. The reminder didn't hesitate at all after speaking, and immediately ordered his pet beast with a soft drink, one-horned rhinoceros, use the earth wall. The rhinoceros, which was gray-brown all over, with solid scales and a body shaped like a small slope, heard this and suddenly raised its hooves, then stomped the ground heavily. Immediately afterwards, he saw a thick earth wall rising out of thin air, blocking the front of the car robot. Bang bang bang. At this moment, the gun barrel of the car robot rotated wildly, the fire snake spurted out, and countless bullets flew out, hitting the earth wall like raindrops. Although the earthen wall blocked most of the bullets, it could only protect one direction, but was powerless in the other 3 directions. Bullets were shot out one after another, some hitting people, causing them serious injuries and making them howl in agony, and some breaking the door and window glass of street stores, frightening the shoppers among them. In this street, order suddenly collapsed and fell into chaos. At the same time, there were more than one such sudden attack in Lingshui City. Riots broke out in Lingshui City. In addition to this street intersection, various robots suddenly appeared in other places and attacked humans or various facilities. The city fell into chaos for a while. In the ground parking lot of an old community about 5 kilometers away from here, an off-road vehicle was parked in the parking space and suddenly started to move. There were no warning signs for the off-road vehicle's movements, and there was no one inside. However, just because there is no one in the car does not mean there is no one in the community. Inside the community, there was a middle-aged couple. The husband saw this scene and showed a surprised expression. "Here, honey, look, am I dazzled? The car seems to be moving." The husband rubbed his eyes and asked his wife who was standing next to him. After hearing this, the wife glanced at her husband nonchalantly and said, "The car is moving. What's the fuss about?" "But there seems to be no one in that car," the husband continued, his tone unchanged, still full of surprise. The wife still didn't care, and even waved her hand impatiently. "It's not surprising that there is no one in the car. Now, the degree of automation of the car is so high. Before the car owner comes, he can press the car key remotely, and the car will automatically leave the parking space. Come out. Last time, when we bought a car for our precious daughter, the sales girl introduced us to a car that had this function, and you said." The wife was nagging and was about to continue talking. At this moment, the husband suddenly raised his voice and interrupted her nagging. "Wait." The husband stared at the parking lot. His voice became a little frightened. "Something's wrong, this car seems to have stood up." "Honey, are you really dazzled? How can the car stand?" When the wife heard her husband's words, she thought he was hallucinating. She was about to say something, but when she glanced at it, she happened to see the scene of the off-road vehicle transforming into a robot. The voice suddenly stopped. "Ah, run away," she screamed, reacted quickly, then picked up her husband and ran out. As soon as they escaped, the car robot stretched out its hands to form a black barrel and fired a shot at the location where they escaped. "Call out." The shells shot towards the two people at extremely fast speeds. The two were already some distance away from the parking lot. At this moment, they had escaped to the corner and were blocked by a unit building. Boom! The shell chased the two people, and finally hit the building of a unit building, directly blasting a hole. There were many residents living in the unit building. The moment the unit building was hit, they all felt a violent shaking. Many of them reacted immediately, thinking that there was an earthquake, running for their lives, and fled straight away. Some even took flying beasts and flew out from the window. There were even some people, wearing underpants, running out of the house next door where the male owner was on a business trip, like wolves, in a panic. They escaped from the unit building and saw the car robot that was doing crazy damage. People who have little confidence in their own strength silently distance themselves and stay farther away. People who were confident in their own strength summoned their pet beasts one after another, as if they were ready to fight the car robot to the end. They did indeed do this, so the community soon became a mess, and explosions were heard from time to time due to the fighting. Attacks like this happened more than a dozen times at the same time in the entire Lingshui city, causing extremely bad effects. In a short period of time, emergency calls, security calls, and fire calls were made one after another. The hospital and the Public Security Bureau immediately became busy. Several ambulances and Public Security Bureau vehicles rushed out to provide support in all directions. In a Public Security Bureau car, the person driving the car was none other than Joe Wiping. He patted the steering wheel and made an angry voice. "Are those grandsons from the Jadu Society crazy?" His eyes were sharp, but he was also a little confused. What are they going to do? Destroy the entire Lingshui city? They are seeking their own death. A security guard from the passenger seat echoed, his tone equally indignant. On the back seat, director of the Public Security Bureau Peng Zongyan frowned in thought. After a moment, he joined the conversation. "Don't worry about whether they are seeking death. We have to consider whether we can survive if the riot is allowed to continue." The situation was so chaotic that it was naturally impossible for him, the director, to continue to sit firmly on the Daoyutai. And he is also a powerful force himself. At this time, he will definitely go to the front line. Boss Peng, what do you mean? Zhou Weiping heard something in his director's words and asked in a deep voice. The security officer sitting in the passenger seat also heard the meaning in Peng Zhongyan's words. He felt a little aggrieved. The Jiandu Association launched such a large-scale attack. We only have such a small amount of security forces in Lingshui City. Even if they are all deployed, it will only be enough. It's just a drop in the bucket. We shouldn't be blamed for this, right? Zhou Weiping unknowingly stepped on the accelerator and headed towards the site of a riot. According to the Energy Watch, the energy intensity there was the highest, reaching the 9th level of command. While accepting the intelligence reported from all around and relaying it to Peng Zhongyan, he frowned and thought, the most important thing is that we don't know what they want to do at all. Peng Zhongyan smiled faintly when he heard Zhou Weiping's words. What do they want to do? Don't we already have an idea? After hearing the reminder from his director, Zhou Weiping quickly reacted after thinking for a moment. Member. What eyebrow? That unstable rift aimed at the management of the Chu family, Niu family, and Zhu family. But the next moment, he denied such a statement. No, even if they want to target that unstable rift, they shouldn't. Before he finished speaking, something suddenly dawned on him, and his thoughts suddenly changed again. Wait, no, he's not trying to contain our power, right? Peng Zhongyan laughed, with obvious bitterness and helplessness in his laughter. Maybe it's not just us. What do you mean? The security guard in the passenger seat scratched his head, unsure. Peng Zhongyan thought for a moment, and without any further concealment, directly expressed his guess. You wouldn't have thought that Jidu would act like this. Is there any arrangement from above? As soon as he finished speaking, the howling of the fire mastiff rang out from a place not far from the car. Judging from the situation detected by the Energy Watch, this fire mastiff has reached the 8th level of leadership and is not a pet beast of the Bureau at all. Pointing to the direction where the howl of the fire mastiff came from, Peng Zhongyan curled his lips and said, no, the arrangement is here. Zhou Weiping was furious, but, doesn't this fall into their trap of luring the tiger away from the mountain? Peng Zhongyan shook his head. This is an outright conspiracy. Unless we don't care about the lives of ordinary citizens, we can't stop them at all. The security officer sitting in the passenger seat looked very ugly. Doesn't it mean that we can only look at the guarding strength of the 3 major families? Zhou Weiping turned the steering wheel suddenly and immediately echoed, I hope they can hold on for a little longer. At the water slide, after Fadian left, Li Qian passed the elevator and came to the top, where he saw a riot in Lingshui City. He was quite worried, so he asked everyone else to return to the training base. In this way, only Li Qian and Tai Lao were left on the entire water slide. After everyone left, Li Qian looked at the firelight rising everywhere and frowned. Judging from the current situation, the riots have not spread to the breeding base, which is a good thing. However, he was not sure whether the breeding base could always survive the disaster. What an eventful time it has been. After sighing, Li Qian went straight down to the top of the water slide and came to the side of the pool without any hesitation. Forget it, out of sight is out of mind. At this moment, I neither want to get involved nor have the ability to get involved. After making some calculations, he did not waste time and directly took out a koi from the pond and placed it in the puddle in the center of the newly dug frost fire array. For the current plan, the most urgent thing is to complete the evolution of all koi as soon as possible. When the time comes, bring all the blue-scaled dragons and frost fire newts back to the breeding base. On the premise that no extreme circumstances occur, the safety of the breeding base should be guaranteed. Therefore, he took action directly without stopping, using his mental power to start the frost fire array. Li Qian knew that the energy jade talisman engraved with formation patterns had a limit on the number of times it could be used. Beyond this limit, the energy jade talisman will be depleted, and the magic circle will lose its effect, or its effect will be weakened. He has not yet tested this number of times, but judging from the estimated situation, it should be more than 10 times. Enough to support the evolution of the remaining 10 koi. Li Qian's eyes were firm and without hesitation, the frost fire array was instantly activated and began to emit 2 completely different lights. Two completely different rays of light began to converge towards the center eye position, and eventually, slowly merged into a new ray of light, and slowly penetrated into the koi's body. He is quite confident about this koi. Among the 10 koi, he was the one that lasted the longest under intimidation training. If it fails to evolve successfully, the remaining 9 koi will be even more in doubt. The reason why Li Qian chose to use it to lead the battle was because it had the greatest certainty. If it evolves successfully, it will not only make a good start, but also inspire the remaining 9 koi. As the brown fusion energy seeped in, bursts of evolutionary light began to appear on the koi's body. Li Qian could feel the pain of the koi, and its body seemed to be twitching. But maybe the pain was not beyond its endurance limit, or maybe the intimidation training played a role. This first wave of evolutionary shock was finally passed by him unharmed. After surviving the first wave of evolutionary shock and opening the first life shackles in the body, although the koi was a little tired, it was more excitement and joy that grew in its heart. It can feel that real strength. If we say that in the past, the fish leaping over the dragon gate was just a beautiful vision, like the moon in the mirror. At this moment, it really felt the existence of Longmen. But if you want to jump over the dragon gate, you still need to cross 2 more hurdles. It is full of confidence in this. This confidence comes not only from Li Qian, the owner of the training base, but also from the hard training he has put in during this period. The first impact was past, and not long after, the second impact followed. Li Qian concentrated on it, not daring to be distracted at all, and tried hard to control the output of his mental power. Soon, the second light of evolution also lit up, and everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, Li Qian knew in his heart that such smoothness was just an appearance. The evolution of the Frostfire Salamander, the first 2 evolutionary shocks, is basically not difficult, at least for the koi from the breeding base who have undergone rigorous training. What is really difficult, that is, the one with the highest probability of failure, is the third evolution, the one with the bloody light of evolution. The fact is just as he guessed, this second evolutionary impact is almost exactly the same as the first one, and it was completed without any effort. Whether we can succeed or not depends on this time. Li Qian murmured to himself as he looked at the third bloody light of evolution that came on shortly after the second light of evolution dimmed. After the bloody light of evolution lit up, he clearly felt that the koi's body twisted even more violently, and the pain it endured was obviously more intense. Li Qian stared silently, watching the koi struggle and being helpless. At this time, he could only look at its own willpower. Although I am very confident in the performance of koi, at this stage of evolution, worries are inevitable. Just as Li Qian was watching intently, he felt that the time was almost up. At this moment, the bloody light of evolution suddenly bloomed, forming a bloody light pillar up to 100 meters high. Seeing this scene, Li Qian took a long breath. The koi carp that took the lead finally evolved successfully. Immediately afterwards, a familiar scene appeared. The bloody light of evolution filled the air, and in the light, the outline of the giant beast was looming. After a moment, the bloody light of evolution disappeared, and a majestic frost-fire salamander suddenly appeared in Li Qian's sight. The sky and the earth are dark and yellow, and the universe is vast. Let's call you Demon Sky, Li Qian murmured to himself. This time, he felt that his name was no longer useless. The name he chose was still somewhat interesting, at least. It sounds very domineering. In addition, choosing this name also entrusted him with a good wish. Heaven, Earth, Xuanwang, Universe, Prehistoric, has exactly 8 characters. Li Qian hopes that this evolution can be successful at least 8 times, so that the quota of 8 characters can be filled. Of course, it would be better if he could succeed 9 times, or even all of them, but Li Qian knew that this was basically impossible. The fact was just as he had guessed. As time flew by, the evolutions were successful one after another. However, this momentum was interrupted when the 4th koi evolved. As expected, after the evolution was successful, the koi that should be named Magic Yellow failed and was stuck on the 3rd evolutionary impact. Alas, Li Qian could only sigh helplessly, with a hint of regret in his heart. At the same time, on the other side, near the hydropower station in the western suburbs, more intense fighting had broken out. 2 men and 1 woman, 3 beastmasters, all probably over 40 years old, summoned 4 pet beasts to direct the battle. The number of contracts for 4 pet beasts, and there are still 3 of them, means that these 3 people are all Overlord-level Beast Masters. The 3 Overlord-level Beast Masters appeared in such a concentrated manner, which means that no one around them saw them, otherwise they would definitely be very surprised. The 3 Beast Masters are all at the Overlord level. Logically speaking, such a powerful force should be able to destroy cities and villages, and no one can challenge them. But the reality is that such a powerful force has been suppressed. Yes, the team composed of 3 Overlord-level Beast Masters actually fell into a disadvantage during the battle. The opponent who could suppress the 3 of them was a row of 10 robots, all of which had reached the Overlord level. In this way, a numerical advantage is formed. Because although the team of 3 people has 12 beasts, there are actually only 5 Overlord-level beasts among them, and the remaining 7 beasts are all only at the 9th level. What's more, the 10 Overlord-level robots seemed to work as one, with perfect tacit understanding. When one attacked, the other would often go back to defend the formation. Under the suppressed firepower, the 3 of them were so beaten that the 12 pets were a little unable to hold their heads up. This can't continue like this. Sooner or later they will break through the blockade, Chu Zhonghe said anxiously. Chu Zhonghe comes from the Chu family in Jizhou City. He is one of the backbones of the contemporary Chu family. His strength has reached the Overlord level and he has 2 Overlord-level pet beasts. The 2 people fighting alongside him were Zhu Guanyu from Zujia in Yunlin City and Niu Aihua from Niujia in Ningyang City. Both of them are also key members of their respective families, otherwise they would not have been sent to perform this guardianship mission. The locations of the 3 families, Jizhou City, Yunlin City, and Ningyang City are also cities not far from Lingshui City. They are also the owners of this unstable rift in Lingshui City. According to the rules for opening this rift, the rift will open in about half a month. At such a critical point in time, they couldn't help but ignore the attack of weapon sacrilege. It was precisely because they paid attention to it that they each sent an Overlord-level Beast Master to defend against it. But what they didn't expect was that the Mechanical Destruction Society actually arranged such a large formation, including 10 Overlord-level robots. This force was completely beyond their expectations, and it was quite difficult for them to resist. Keep calling for family support, we won't be able to hold on for long. Niu Aihua ordered Shuarang to fire a flaming punch, detonating a missile that was coming at a rapid speed. Amidst the explosion, she said in the same anxious tone, "Now, what's the situation at the reservoir?" Zhu Guanyu asked with raised eyebrows. He was under the greatest pressure at the scene because he only had 1 Overlord-level pet beast. On the other side of the reservoir, there are only 3 young people still guarding it. If our line of defense is breached, the consequences will be disastrous. Chu Zhonghe responded while resisting the attack. His brows had furrowed into the character, Chuan. If he was just resisting the 10 robots in front of him, he would still have some confidence, but if he wanted to entangle them and not let any of them go, the pressure would be a bit high. After all, they are still on the weak side now. It is impossible for a weak party to contain a strong party without paying some price. No matter what they are afraid of, just when the 3 of them were feeling uneasy, the 9 robots seemed to have received some order and actually started to form a formation to cover the breakthrough of 1 robot. When the 3 of them saw this scene, their expressions changed greatly. If they were to be broken through, the 3 young men, whose strength could reach the commander level, would not be able to stop this Overlord-level robot. Therefore, after looking at each other, they launched the attack in tacit understanding, and even adopted the strategy of exchanging injuries for injuries, trying their best to prevent the robot from breaking through. Bang bang bang, boom boom boom. For a time, the sounds of collisions, explosions, heavy objects falling to the ground, all kinds of sounds were intertwined, and the scene became even more chaotic. Chu Zhonghe took a long breath. At the cost of serious injuries to the 2 Overlord-level beasts, they finally blocked the breakthrough of the 10th robot. However, before he could let go of his anxious heart, something unexpected happened suddenly. A burst of engine roar suddenly reached the ears of the 3 of them from far to near. Chu Zhonghe followed the sound, and then he almost froze in place. I saw that they were 5 cars of different brands and shapes. After approaching, the 5 cars suddenly braked to a stop, and then quickly disintegrated and reorganized under the horrified eyes of the 3 of them. In just the blink of an eye, 5 more robots appeared. In this way, the situation between the enemy and ourselves was self-evident. To be honest, when they saw this scene, the three of them felt very sad. Originally, it was very difficult for 3 people and 12 pets to deal with 10 Overlord-level robots. Now, 5 more robots of the same level are coming. How can they block or fight? 5 Overlord-level robots appeared. They did not join the battle, but went straight to the reservoir behind the 3 people and the 12 pets. At this moment, facing the 5 new Overlord-level robots that appeared and headed straight for their destination, the 3 of them and the 12 pets could only watch helplessly, unable to stop them anymore. Moreover, strictly speaking, they have to thank the 5 new robots for not joining the existing battle. Otherwise, whether the 3 of them can retreat has to be decided separately. They were powerless and had no choice but to watch the 5 robots break out toward the reservoir behind them. The feeling of despair came over me. After all, it still fell short. Just when they were thinking about whether they had to retreat, a thick bolt of lightning struck, stopping the 5 robots in their tracks. Immediately afterwards, the fire mastiff, wolf vulture, and apple-eating deer appeared one after another, indicating the identity and level of the visitor. The 4 pet beasts showed that the visitor's strength was at the Overlord level, and the fire mastiff and wolf vulture were almost the standard pet beasts of the Public Security Bureau, so the identity of the visitor was self-evident. If Lu Chengfeng and Xie Dongye were here, they would find that the woman who suddenly appeared, with a tall figure and a cool temperament, is none other than Zhao Shui, the Special Commissioner of the Jiangnan Provincial Public Security Bureau who fought side by side in the Yunwu Mountain Scenic Area last time. The 3 of them felt it for a while, and then they were surprised to find that the other party's 4 pet beasts, except for the thunder leopard that had just been shot, the other 3 had all reached the Overlord level. It was obvious that the other party was stronger than the 3 of them. But even so, the 3 of them still couldn't help but worry. 3 versus 5, the advantage still lies with the opponent. That's what they thought, but when the battle started, their thoughts completely changed, and their eyes almost fell off. The so-called Overlord level of the 3 of us seems to be not the same concept as the Overlord level of the other party. The gap was so big that they all felt a little ashamed. The 3 of them were shocked because they saw that the tall and slender woman who suddenly appeared was actually the royal envoy Xi Ping Deer. She used the seed wrapping technique. A seed flew out and instantly turned into countless vines, wrapping around a machine. Car robot. After easily controlling a car robot, the apple-eating deer once again activated the skill, Thorn of Thorns, and 2 thick vines pierced into the body of the car robot like 2 cones. Zilla zilla. After a burst of sparks and lightning, the car robot stopped struggling. There was no movement, and even the red light in its eyes was extinguished. Just hang up. Chu Zhonghe, Zhu Guanyu, and Niu Aihua all saw this scene, and then their eyes widened with disbelief on their faces. Even if each of these robots is taken alone, they are not very strong. They are also at the bottom of the Overlord level. But no matter how weak the Overlord level is, it is still the Overlord level. Their main pet beast cannot be easily defeated in a one-on-one situation, even if it can be suppressed. But what is the scene in front of me? An Overlord-level robot died so easily and effortlessly at the hands of the tall woman's apple-eating deer's 2 skills. If this had not happened before their eyes, they would never have believed it. After reacting from the shock, the 3 of them all looked happy. The sudden appearance of a tall and slender woman with such strong fighting power was definitely a good thing for them. And they have already made certain guesses. In addition to the identity of this mysterious tall woman, the opponent is most likely from the Public Security Bureau. Another point, which is also very important, is that her level has probably reached the high level of Overlord. Otherwise, it would be impossible to easily kill a first-level Overlord robot instantly, even if the apple-eating deer is a pet beast with dual attributes of wood and life. Seeing the hope of victory, the 3 people's fighting will has greatly increased. Their cooperation is not bad. They command their respective beasts and use various skills without hesitation. For a moment, the situation was slowly brought back. At this moment, they were not worried at all about whether they could maintain this excessive force. They just need to survive this period of time. When the battle with the tall woman not far away is over, she will definitely come to their aid. This is what they thought, and half of the facts were not much different from what they expected. The tall woman did not spend much time to solve the 5 car robots. However, after taking care of the 5 robots, the opponent's next move left them a bit dumbfounded. The other party did not come to their aid, but headed straight for the reservoir at extremely fast speeds. This fool is not a good person if she refuses to save her. When Zhu Guanyu saw this scene, he couldn't help but cursed. When Chu Zhonghe heard this, there was a little sweat on his forehead. Lao Zhu, please take it easy, be careful of others overhearing it. According to the situation just now, 10 of you may not be someone's opponent. Quote. Why am I so leisurely? That fool, is it true that she refuses to save anyone, or is she a state official? Zhu Guanyu had no intention of shutting up, and was still shouting angrily. Niu Aihua couldn't stand it and said something fair. It's a good thing that she is rushing to the reservoir now to see if there is any accident. Besides, she also brought 2 robots, which relieved our pressure. Yes, just now, when the tall woman left, 2 car robots besieging them followed them. The 2 car robots followed, obviously to stop the tall woman. This made the 3 of them feel a little uneasy while their pressure was greatly reduced. 2 robots went to stop the tall woman, which is enough to show that they probably had a plan at the reservoir. The facts were just as they had guessed. Time went back about 5 minutes. In the power station building next to the reservoir, Niu Fengjin, who had just been discharged from the hospital, joined Zhu Bingqing and Chu Shiren. The 3 of them had solemn expressions and were ready for battle. Originally, Niu Fengjin had to stay in the hospital for a while. After all, his injury had not healed, but the situation took a turn for the worse, and he had to go into battle with the injury. The 3 of them squatted in the factory and soon received information about the riots in the city. When Chu Shiren saw the news, he couldn't help but frown. It seems that there will be no peace tonight. And we are likely to fall into an isolated and helpless situation. Zhu Bingqing took over the words and continued. In front of us is the defense line formed by 3 family seniors. The Mechanical Duty Society should not be able to break through, Niu Fengjin said, but there was not much confidence in his voice. He knew very well that if the Zhu Duhui was determined to break through, the blockade formed by the 3 seniors might not be able to stop them for long. And they, the 3 commander-level beast masters who had just broken through, were said to form the last line of defense. In fact, this line of defense was extremely fragile and could not provide much protection at all. It's more about the role of the old suspicion array. Yes, the unstable rift is not actually in this factory area. Currently, only Chu Shiren knows about this matter. She is the person in charge of the operations in the factory. Inside the factory, the 3 of them were still discussing. Suddenly, a violent explosion mixed with the distinct sound of birdsong reached their ears. It's the flamingos on alert. Niu Fengjin reminded him almost as soon as the voice sounded. The flamingo was his pet beast, the leader of the Second Order, and he placed it hovering over the factory area as a warning. At this moment, when the flamingo reacted like this, it was self-evident, it had encountered an enemy. When the 3 of them heard the sharp and violent chirping of birds and the sound of explosions, their hearts trembled. No, the defense line formed by the 3 seniors was still broken through by them. After exclaiming, Niu Fengjin did not dare to slack off at all and immediately ran towards the factory gate. When he arrived at the entrance of the factory and looked at the 5 helicopters hovering in the air, he couldn't help but press his forehead. You know that the defense line built by the 3 family seniors cannot easily block all attacks. Next, under the horrified eyes of the 3 people, 5 helicopters landed directly, and then quickly decomposed and reorganized. In the blink of an eye, they had turned into 5 helicopter robots. Chu Shiren wore an energy detector on his body. After the 5 helicopter robots appeared, the detector made a rapid beeping sound. She took out the detector and took a look. Sweat quickly broke out on her forehead. The 5 robots are all Overlord level. What's even more frightening is that beside the 5 Overlord level helicopter robots, there are 5 young men wearing uniform white coats and uniform black rimmed glasses. These grandsons of the Mechanical Profanation Society have finally appeared. Niu Fengjin saw the 5 men in white coats appearing, with sparks of hatred reflected in his eyes. The flamingo landed from a high altitude. Just now, it used a fire attribute skill to detonate a surprise missile. Otherwise, if they were dropped by this missile, even if all 3 of them had the ability to avoid being injured, they would definitely be injured. Ended up in disgrace. After chirping twice, it landed on a mast on the top of the factory. Then it looked down at Niu Fengjin, who had already reached the door, waiting for the latter's instructions. At the same time, Zhu Bingqing's pink light butterfly was also summoned and landed next to the flamingo. Regardless of whether there was a fight later, there was nothing wrong with occupying a favorable position first. At the door, the three of them walked out together and formed a confrontation with the 5 whitecoats from the Mechanical Profanity Society. Niu Fengjin looked at the 5 Overlord-level helicopter robots with despair in his eyes. How to fight this? You have to fight even if you can't beat him. Zhu Bingqing glanced at Niu Fengjin. Her eyes were blazing, her fists clenched loudly, and she showed no intention of retreating. Don't forget our mission. Chu Shiren's voice was as calm as ever. She spoke coldly and reminded. No, what's the difference between us rushing forward like this and risking our lives? Niu Fengjin felt a little guilty when he saw Zhu Bingqing and Chu Shiren both fighting to the end and looking forward to death. I think, little brother, what you said makes some sense. As soon as Niu Fengjin finished speaking, one of the 5 whitecoats spoke up. He smiled and persuaded him to surrender, rather than be so worthless. If you're going to die, why don't you tell us where it is? I can make the decision and let you leave without embarrassment. Where? What where? Niu Fengjin curled his lips indifferently after hearing what the man in white coat said suddenly, and then deliberately pretended not to hear what he meant, and joked. You want to say this Lingshui wherever the city has good wine and hot girls, I can really provide you with a few places. When the man in the white coat who had just spoken heard this, he looked at Niu Fengjin and shook his head in disappointment. As the saying goes, a man who knows the current affairs is a hero. Since you are so ignorant of promotion, don't blame us for being rude. As he spoke, he was already ready to take action, and a helicopter robot next to him also began to move. When Niu Fengjin saw this scene, a thin layer of sweat broke out on his forehead. It feels good for a while, but the result is a crematorium. Gritting his teeth suddenly, Niu Fengjin also put on a calm and fearless posture. He laughed and cursed. What are you afraid of? You are not polite. I am not polite anymore. It just so happens that you plotted against me last time. Today let's forget it together. The moment he said these provocative words, Chu Shiren's voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Don't be too provocative. Don't really fight them later. Let's retreat while fighting. Try to lure them out of this place. In order to cooperate more conveniently, the 3 of them wore communication headsets. At this moment, Chu Shiren was using the communication headsets to communicate with Niu Fengjin. It turns out we were fighting and retreating at the same time. I thought I was really going to fight them to the end. After hearing Chu Shiren's words, Niu Fengjin took a long breath and almost couldn't help but pat his chest. Before, that was a way of emboldening oneself. You can't be timid before fighting. Anyway, you can't admit defeat, but if he really wants to fight with 5 Overlord-level helicopter robots, he will definitely get scared. After all, there is really no difference between this and dying. Chu Shiren seemed to be worried that Niu Fengjin didn't understand the deeper meaning, so he added, lead them away from this place, otherwise, the sealed place will be discovered sooner or later. After hearing this, Niu Fengjin had an excited look on his face, and then he muttered to himself, okay, now, the operation codenamed, Leading the Wolf, has officially begun. Work together to attack a helicopter robot. Now that they had made a decision, the 3 of them no longer hesitated. Following Chu Shiren's order, they all took action. Golden armored insect, use the sickle to slash. Flamingo, use explosive sparks. Earth escape beast, use rock thrust. Niu Endeavor, who suffered a big loss last time, took the lead in using his 3-headed beast to attack one of them. The white coats attacked. Although attacking a white coat may not necessarily be useful, a helicopter robot with an attack level of Overlord level will definitely not achieve anything. The fact was just as he had guessed. A helicopter robot suddenly moved sideways, raised its arms, condensed energy, and displayed an energy shield, blocking all the skills of the 3-headed beasts. The occurrence of this result has little to do with the restraint of the skill itself. The main reason is that the strength gap between the 2 sides is too large. The Overlord level and the Commander level are 2 completely different worlds. Even a 9th-level Commander Beast with the potential to reach the Holy Spirit level may not be able to defeat a 1st-level Overlord Beast with a potential that can only reach the Overlord level. The strength of pet beasts is like this. The more advanced they are, the greater the gap at each level. Powerful crocodile, shadow sable, pink light butterfly, we are coming too. Alang, Tang, Xiaohui, we can't fall behind others. Seeing that Niu Fenjin had taken the lead, Chu Shiren and Zhu Bingqing did not hesitate. Following closely, they also ordered their pet beasts to launch an attack. After using a skill and indiscriminate bombardment, Chu Shiren directly gave the order, withdraw, regardless of whether or not the 5 members of the Mechanical Destruction Society and the 5 robots were killed or not. Her voice sounded in the communication headset, and the next moment, the 3 of them ran outside the factory in tacit agreement and without hesitation, and the 12 pet beasts also retreated without looking back. After pulling some distance away, Niu Fenjin looked behind him and found that the 5 members of the Mechanical Duty Society were not chasing him, so he asked with some confusion, "She ran, something is wrong, the 5 of them did not follow. What to do?" Seeing this, the expression on Chu Shiren's face did not change. In fact, the corner of her mouth even slightly curved. "The matter is now over, we have tried our best, continue to evacuate, it is not suitable to stay here for a long time." Quote. In the factory area, the member of the Mechanical Profanity Association who had just spoken looked at the direction in which the 3 people were leaving and couldn't help but sneered, "Ha ha ha, 3 little idiots, using electronic equipment in front of our Mechanical Profanation Association, and it's a bit naive and a bit stupid." After saying that, they got into the factory area without hesitation. After a while, they walked out with ugly faces. "No, there are no traces of spatial fluctuations detected here. The unstable rift is not here at all. We were lie, this is just a pretense." The man in the white coat who spoke had a worried look on his face. He looked at the other man in the white coat next to him and scolded directly, "Huang Shiqi, you idiot, we have been deceived again." After the man in the white coat named Huang Shiqi was scolded all over his face, not only did he not refute at all, but he even asked in a timid tone, "Captain Zan Wu, then, what should we do now?" There is a strict hierarchy within the Mechanic Do Association, with the 5 major levels of Heaven, Earth, Zan, and Huang being subordinate to each other. In other words, this, Zan Wu, is likely to be the direct leader of Huang Shiqi. At this moment, it was normal for him to be teased by 3 young men after he missed the target. If he hadn't considered that he was still facing the enemy at this moment, the result might not be as simple as just scolding him. Captain Xuanwu rolled his eyes at Huang Shiqi angrily, then waved his hand and pointed in the direction where Chu Shiren and the others were escaping. "What else can we do? Hurry up and catch up, don't let them escape. The clues here are broken, and the situation is very clear. This place is most likely their target on purpose, and it is a suspicion formation. The real sealing place shouldn't be here." Thinking that his subordinates have been being treated like monkeys without knowing it, he couldn't help but feel furious. Huang Shiqi also reacted immediately, and then directly put the blame on Chu Shiren and the others. "If you dare to play tricks on our Weapon Profanity Society, you 3 will die without a burial place." The 3 exchanged a few words briefly, and then without wasting any more time, they turned the 5 robots into 5 helicopters again, then boarded the plane and chased them. Chu Shiren and the other 3 were running away. They had already run some distance towards the western suburbs. When they looked back, they found that 5 helicopters were following them again. Niu Fenjin heard the sound of the rotating blades. When he looked back, he was startled. "Why are you catching up again?" Chu Shiren didn't react at all. She took off her earphones directly, and then said in a calm voice, "It should have been discovered. I'm not stupid enough to wear electronic products in front of people from the Mechanic Society." As she spoke, she threw away the communication earphones in her hands like old shoes. "Well, isn't this your plan?" Seeing this, Niu Fenjin also threw away the communication earphones. When he suddenly realized, his face was quickly filled with doubts and confusion. Also, they discovered what? Chu Shiren took a look and saw that he was still confused, so she explained to him, "I discovered that the previous factory area was not a sealed place." After hearing this, Niu Fenjin couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. "You even hid this kind of thing from me." Chu Shiren ignored Niu Fenjin's complaints and continued to kill people and said, "I didn't mean to hide it from you. It was specially told by the superiors not to let you know, and it's unreliable to talk about your character." A black line appeared on Niu Fengjin's forehead. He almost couldn't hold it back and swore directly. Zhu Bingqing originally wanted to complain because she didn't know about it, but seeing Niu Fengjin's deflated appearance made her feel much better. There is no need to worry about it. Besides, she also knew why the elders of the three families only informed Chu Shiren about this matter. The latter's daily performance is indeed the most calm. For such an important operation, it is understandable that confidentiality should be stricter. Phew, just as the three of them were struggling to escape, two missiles shot straight towards them from the sky not far away, at extremely fast speeds. Seed entanglement. Seeing this, Chu Shiren did not hesitate and directly ordered Beideng Monster to fight back. She didn't expect her attack to achieve anything, as long as it could play some blocking role. But the reality was beyond his expectation. 5 seeds formed an attack net and entangled the two missiles. The two missiles were entangled in a net formed by 5 seeds that instantly sprouted and turned into vines, and then exploded in the air. Seeing this scene, Chu Shiren took a long breath. Fortunately, the capabilities of these robots have dropped a lot after they recovered their helicopter bodies. Otherwise, the seed entanglement just now would have been impossible to detonate 2 missiles. Not only Chu Shiren, but also Zhu Bingqing and Niu Fengjin also noticed such an obvious change in combat power. They also ordered their pet beasts to launch an attack, but their retreat did not slow down much. The 3 of them were smart, but the other 5 were not stupid either. Seeing that the helicopter robot's weakness was discovered, they were decisive and immediately issued an order to make the 3 helicopters fall straight down. During the fall, their bodies twisted and reorganized, and when they landed, they had turned into 3 robots. The 3 helicopters transformed. Although they lost their flying ability, speed and agility advantages, their combat effectiveness was liberated. The other 2 continued to maintain the air pursuit posture and interfere. In this way, it didn't take long for the 3 and 9 pets to be caught up. Seeing that they could not escape, the 3 formed an array again and prepared to confront the enemy. Since they could not escape, continuing to expose their backs to the enemy would only make it more dangerous. Niu Fengjin looked at the 5 robots that were gradually approaching, and couldn't help but spat, "You don't have martial ethics." He looked at Chu Shiren, seeking the latter's opinion. "What should we do now?" Chu Shiren spread his hands helplessly. "This time, I really can only eat it cold." Before, it was by taking advantage of the 5 people's eagerness to find the sealed place that they successfully escaped. If the 5 members of the Mechanic Society and the 5 Overlord-level robots really wanted to surround the 3 of them, it would be impossible for them to escape. "You are a little scheming, and you actually know how to use electronic devices to play against us, but you have forgotten that in this world, strength is the rule after all." After catching up with the 3 of them, Zhongwu said in a cold tone. After that, he waved his hand suddenly, and the 5 Overlord-level helicopter robots quickly moved into action and launched an attack. At the critical moment, a mature voice with a hint of laziness suddenly rang out, "Qiantang Yao, use the wood dragon technique." As the voice fell, hundreds of vines suddenly sprouted out of the surrounding woods and wilderness. The vines gathered together, forming the shape of an eastern dragon, and attacked directly towards the 5 helicopter robots. Boom boom boom. The wooden dragon swept over with an extremely domineering attitude, and actually knocked all 5 helicopter robots away. When the 3 of them saw this scene, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Niu Fengjin couldn't help but exclaimed, "This is an Overlord-level wood beast. It looks like it should be a high-level Overlord." Immediately afterwards, there was a strong feeling of excitement. There was no doubt that strong support had arrived. The next moment, the strong support was delivered to the 3 people on the steps made of several vines. Niu Fengjin looked at the strong support in front of him and asked cautiously and tentatively, "Senior, who are you?" The mature woman wearing a red vest, a little yellow hat, and holding a small flag in her hand glanced at Niu Fengjin and said, "Don't you see, I'm a tour guide." Ah, after hearing this, Niu Fengjin looked at the mature woman's attire and didn't know how to respond. The woman in front of me does seem to be a tour guide, but who tour guide has such terrifying fighting power? Chapter 91. Regardless of how strange the woman who suddenly appeared in front of him was, or not, the more powerful she was, the better it would be for him. Senior, these people are all cult members of the Mechanical Profanity Society, and they do all kinds of evil. After reacting, Niu Fengjin directly started asking for help, with an angry tone, as if he was a moral defender who hated evil. The mature woman who claimed to be a tour guide looked at Niu Fengjin and said politely, "I can tell, I don't need your introduction." Niu Fengjin was embarrassed for a while. At this moment, the identities of the 5 people on the other side were already obvious, and they just had to put the words, Mechanical Profanity Society, on their foreheads. There is indeed no need to waste any more time. In fact, Niu Fengjin didn't want to go into details, but he was just preparing to get closer to each other. Who would have thought that he would hit a soft nail directly? Your Excellency, it seems that we, the Shandu Club, have no grievances with you in the past, right? Xuanwu managed to resist an attack from the Qiantang demon, and looked at the female tour guide who suddenly appeared with wary eyes. Do I need a reason to deal with you cultists? The female tour guide curled her lips and said casually, if you really need to, I don't like people who destroy the environment, and you guys just violated my taboo. After hearing this, Zanwu couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. What do you mean by people who don't like people who destroy the environment? There are so many people who destroy the environment in this world. Why don't you deal with them and focus on the 5 of us? He was angry, but he did not ask questions, because he knew very well that these words were just a random reason for the other party, and the other party's fundamental purpose was to deal with himself. And despite the fact that she was dressed strangely, at least for a master, in fact, her identity might still be a federal public official. It's not like he hasn't encountered this kind of thing before, so the other party's sudden attack on the 5 of his own is probably just a matter of position, but this is also the most unsolvable. After suppressing his smile, Zanwu's eyes suddenly became sharp. As the mental power fluctuated, the summoning circle lit up, and 3 more robots appeared in front of the female tour guide. Senior, be careful, these 3 robots are also overlord level. Niu Fengjin used the energy detector to detect the energy levels of the 3 newly appeared robots, so he reminded them. After hearing Niu Fengjin's reminder, the female tour guide did not give any response, but said with some surprise, I didn't expect you to be a real overlord. As far as she knows, the Mechanical Profanity Society is different from several other cult organizations. They only breed mechanical beasts, and there is a secret method that allows a beast master to cross a large realm and contract a mechanical beast. The price is only 1 contract can be made. At first, the female tour guide thought that the 5 people present were all in this situation, but she did not expect that this guy was not a leapfrog contract, but a genuine overlord. In this case, it was still a bit troublesome to deal with it. Of course, it was just a little troublesome. Without thinking much, as the light flickered, she summoned another pet beast, a puppet about the size of a person. 1,000-year wooden puppet. Chu Shiren recognized the identity of the pet almost as soon as the female tour guide summoned it. This is an extremely rare pet beast called the Millennium Wooden Puppet. It has dual attributes of wood and spiritual attributes, and is especially resistant to mechanical attributes. Yes, although the mechanical system has outstanding combat power at the same level, it is not without its weaknesses. The spiritual system is its lifeblood. Most of the spiritual skills are intangible. Except for a small number of special metals, they are basically impossible to isolate, and it is almost impossible to achieve complete isolation. Once this type of skill hits a mechanical beast, it will destroy or interfere with the operation of its internal components, causing a great loss in the mechanical beast's combat power. Of course, restraint also depends on strength. If the gap in strength is too large, even if you restrain yourself, it may not be very effective. The 1,000-year-old wooden golem in front of him was obviously very powerful. Judging from the energy fluctuations escaping, it was no weaker than the 1,000-tang demon that appeared before. This made Zanwu very afraid. The most important thing is that he knows very well that this matter must be cut off quickly. If it continues to be delayed, when the people from the Public Security Bureau resolve the riots in the city, they will definitely rush to this battlefield. By then, we will be outnumbered and the enemy will be outnumbered. They are really dangerous. In addition, the arrangements within the dimensional rift are already in place. If they are unable to open a breakthrough, this operation will fall short. In view of this, Zanwu gritted his teeth suddenly and ordered to the 4 subordinates next to him, I will deal with this guy, you don't have to worry about it, just grab those 3 fools and ask them where the unstable crack is. We don't have time to delay. After that, he commanded the 4 robots he had contracted to attack the female guide. If you want to deal with those 3 little guys in front of me, it depends on whether you have this ability. Seeing this, the female tour guide raised a faint arc at the corner of her mouth. Qiantang Yao, you protect them, leave this place to the Millennium Wooden Puppet, that's it. After all, they were 4 Overlord-level robots, so she didn't dare to rely on them. She didn't have to worry about her own safety, but if the 3 little guys were captured, she would be told to take action. The battle began in an instant, and explosions were heard from time to time, spreading far away. Even Zhao Shui, who was staying in the factory at this moment, heard it. But she couldn't rush to support immediately because she was entangled by 2 Overlord-level robots that arrived later. Seeing this, she didn't hesitate and started fighting the 2 robots directly in the factory area. She knew very well that only by taking care of these 2 robots could she be free to support the next battlefield. The apple-eating deer, fire mastiff, wolf vulture, and thunder leopard all came on stage, and their strength levels directly crushed them, leaving the 2 robots with almost no power to fight back. Bang bang. Wow, it didn't take long for both robots to be knocked down, and their parts fell to pieces on the ground. One of them was even knocked upside down and fell into the reservoir not far away, and could no longer stand up, rise. The 2 robots were easily eliminated. Zhao Shui did not waste any time and pursued them in the direction of the explosion. What she didn't know was that the robot she knocked down into the reservoir was constantly sinking. Although it had lost its combat effectiveness and even its ability to move, its eyes were still flickering, which showed that it was still alive. Suddenly, its eyes swept over a place, which was a hole at the bottom of the reservoir. There was light flickering there. It looked like it should be a formation. Found it. Seeing the formation at the bottom of the reservoir, the robot shared the information without any hesitation. Almost at the same time, a picture suddenly appeared in the glasses of the 5 Shuangwu people who were fighting fiercely. Under the dark water of unknown depth, there was a formation with flickering light. Seeing the image transmitted through the glasses, Zanwu's pupils suddenly shrank, and his reaction was half a beat slower. In a blink of an eye, a robot was attacked and suffered serious injuries. One of his robots was attacked, but he didn't care. Instead, he smiled. I found it. It turns out it's really hidden under the reservoir. He muttered to himself while resisting the attack, and then his eyes lit up. He gritted his teeth suddenly and shouted, Huang San, Huang Wu, Huang Ju, Huang 17, cover me. On the other side, the 4 people who were fighting the Sento demon also received the message. While excited, they immediately understood Xuanwu's intentions, and then decisively abandoned the enemies they were fighting, and instead frantically shot at the female guide and Qianchen the wooden golem attacked. The female tour guide did not expect that the 3 and 4 Huangs would adopt such a life-threatening style of play. Without warning, they were hit by various skills and lost their rhythm, so they could only defend first. Not far away, on the edge of the battlefield, Chu Shiren and the other 3, who could not help much, were also confused when they saw this scene. Feta number 2, withdraw. Seeing that Huang, 3 or 4 others had temporarily stopped the female tour guide with unexpected attacks, Zanwu immediately retreated without hesitation. What's happening here? The female tour guide was even more puzzled when she saw this. What are these guys from the Mechanic Society doing, and why have they changed so much? Not good. Chu Shiren frowned. Soon, he thought of something, so he reminded loudly, he may have found the real sealing place. The real sealed place. The female tour guide heard her reminder, turned her head, and cast a questioning look at her. Chu Shiren pursed her lips and said with some embarrassment, I can't explain this at once. In short, stop him first. It stands to reason that the female tour guide can completely ignore this obvious concealment. Not to mention Chu Shiren, even the family behind her is not qualified to tell her to do anything. But the female tour guide didn't even think about it and chased after him directly. He wants to leave, but it's not that simple. She commanded her 2 pet beasts and launched a violent attack on Wu, who wanted to escape. No matter what you find, don't even think about leaving. Zan Wu was entangled again by the female tour guide and could not escape. He looked at the other 4 people and issued an order in a cold and stern voice. Huang San, Huang Wu, Huang Ju, Huang Qi, you know how to do it. When Huang San and Huang heard such an order, their faces showed determination. "Remember to get us back." After shouting, the four people moved quickly and rushed into the cockpit of the robot. Then they saw that the robot suddenly shot out bursts of strange red light. While their bodies emitted red light, their auras also began to rise. Seeing this, Zhan Wu's retreat speed suddenly accelerated, and he made a promise without hesitation: "Don't worry, I will implant your memory chip into the new clone." This aspect is also a very important reason why the Mechanical Profanation Society is difficult to deal with. They are not afraid of death. Even if you die due to some organizational tasks, you can implant a new clone through the memory chip and come back to life. Of course, it is difficult to determine whether the person who has returned from resurrection is still the same person as before. These forbidden technologies are expressly prohibited by all federations on the ancestral planet. However, this prohibition is limited to ordinary people and organizations. There is no binding force at all on a cult organization like the Mechanical Profanity Society. In front of them, ethics and morals, laws and regulations are just a piece of paper. No, they are preparing to burn the energy furnace. Seeing Huang, 3 or 4 others entering the robot's cockpit, and the 4 Overlord-level robots immediately emitting dazzling red light, the female guide's face began to become serious. She shouted in a deep voice and suddenly increased the intensity of her attack. "It's a fool's errand to think of us breaking through this state." Inside the robot, Huang San's eyes were cold and stern. He merged with this mechanical beast, and burned the energy furnace, and his strength skyrocketed. The female tour guide tested it out and found out that in terms of attack power alone, the 4 robots had reached the mid-level Overlord level. Teaming up with Xuanwu's other 3 Overlord elementary level robots, 7 against 2, even if the 1000 Vine Demon and 1000-Year Wood Puppet have reached the high-level Overlord level, it is impossible to defeat them in a short time. She knew very well that the burning energy furnaces of Huang San and the other 4 robots could not last long. After the state retreated, they would only be left helpless to die. Unfortunately, this period of time was enough for Zhan Wu to escape far away and even achieve his goal, purpose. Chu Shiren and the other 3 who were wandering on the edge of the battlefield couldn't help but look anxious when they saw this scene. They tried to launch an attack, but unfortunately the difference in strength was too great and had almost zero impact on the battle. They could only watch as Zhan Wu broke through. Zhan Wu broke through the encirclement and left. Although he was in a bit of a mess, he was in a very comfortable mood. He found the sealing place. Even if he and Huang Sanwu all died, it was still worth it. What's more, he has a backup plan, which is enough to wipe out everyone here. As long as he finds the sealing place, he can use it. Ha ha ha. Realizing that victory was right in front of him, he couldn't help laughing wildly. His laughter was unbridled and quite crazy, and then, the next moment, it stopped abruptly. Because he saw an orange-red fireball with a diameter of 7 or 8 meters slamming over. This is the Big Flame Bullet skill of the fire attribute beast. Just when he remembered what kind of skill it was, the next moment, he and Feta number 1 beside him were engulfed by a huge orange-red fireball. The female tour guide, who had been pulled away for a while and was still entangled with the 7 robots, couldn't help but smile when she saw this scene. Sure enough, people can't be too proud, otherwise they will be struck by lightning rather than roasted by fire. Also, that is a fire mastiff, and that person is Zhao Shui, the Special Commissioner of the Jiangnan Provincial Public Security Bureau. Last time, during the battle in the Yunwu Mountain Scenic Area, we only sent out 1 Thunder Leopard. Sure enough, it was hiding something. Seeing the woman in black leather clothing riding on the wolf vulture, the female tour guide quickly saw through it. Its identity, and reminds me of some things. At the same time, Zhao Shui also saw the female guide who was commanding 2 pet beasts to fight in midair. Mu Qianqin, the contemporary descendant of the guardian family of Senran's secret realm. After recognizing the identity of the female tour guide, Zhao Shui was quite surprised. He did not expect that she would leave Yunwu Mountain and come to Lingshui City to help. The 2 women looked at each other from a distance, then looked away and looked at their respective battlefields. Mu Qianqin, that is, the female tour guide, Huang San and the other 4 robots have shown signs of fatigue. It is obvious that they have reached the end of their strength. On Zhao Shui's side, a robot covered in red light slowly emerged from the fire. Before Zhao Shui could command the pet beast to attack again, the robot covered in red light ran away again at an extremely fast speed. Zhao Shui was stunned for a moment by running away after seeing him. Such a coquettish operation. After waiting to react, the other party had already pulled away some distance. Zhao Shui is not stupid, on the contrary, she is a very smart woman. She glanced at Mu Qianqun who was fighting at a distance, and then glanced at her opponent who was running away quickly. Without saying a word, she directly pursued him. No matter why he wanted to run away, there would definitely be no problem in stopping him. However, at this time, Zan Wu, who had already unleashed all his strength and burned the energy furnace, was extremely fast. She pursued him, but for a while, she was unable to catch up. The distance is shortening, but it is still beyond the range of the attack, or even if it hits, the power is limited. At this moment, Chu Shiren, who was trying his best to catch up, reminded, "Senior, stop him quickly." When Zhao Shui heard this, she couldn't help but twitch her lips. "You still have to say, isn't that what I'm doing? Also, why didn't you warn me earlier?" If he had been warned earlier, that guy would have had no chance of escaping. "Oh, you said you were too weak to keep up, then, forget it." The place of fighting was not very far from the hydropower station. After a chase, they quickly arrived nearby. When they arrived at this place, the distance between the two people had become much closer. Zhao Shui ordered the fastest wolf vulture to activate the skill, Storm Feather Blade, directly in midair. Countless feathers wrapped with powerful wind energy shot out like bright meteors. Zan Wu and Feta No. 1 merged, and their combat power soared. However, in the face of such an overwhelming and fierce attack, they were still unable to avoid it. Bang bang bang. The alloy on its body was bombarded with craters, and the entire robot was thrown directly away. Ha ha ha. Very good, very good. Wait for me, you guys. Zan Wu was thrown into the air without fear, and even laughed unbridled. Then with a plop, it fell into the reservoir. When Zhao Shui saw this scene, she instinctively felt that something was wrong. Why can he still say harsh words and still laugh under such circumstances? Oops. Chu Shiren and the other three who were chasing after him also heard Zan Wu's laughter and cruel words. Seeing his fate, Chu Shiren exclaimed in surprise. Before she could continue to explain, something unexpected happened suddenly. The 7 robots that were fighting Mu Qianqun suddenly ran like crazy in a certain direction at extremely fast speeds. In fact, a mechanical octopus about the size of a millstone suddenly emerged from the body of one of the robots that had lost its combat effectiveness. It ran with 8 legs in a certain direction at lightning speed. Mu Qianqun was a little confused when she saw this scene, and wanted to pursue him, but found that these robots ran wildly regardless of the situation. Even if they were attacked, they would not stop or fight back. Even if they lost their fighting power, a layer of energy would emerge from their bodies. Mechanical octopus, keep going. Of the 7 robots, only 3 robots and 2 mechanical octopuses rushed to their destination. And their destination is no other place, it is the reservoir. After arriving at the reservoir, they did not hesitate and plunged directly in. What on earth is going on? Mu Qianqun came after them, looked at Chu Shiren and the other 3 who were standing by the reservoir with anxious expressions on their faces, and asked. The place of seal, which is the unstable rift, is actually at the bottom of the reservoir. Now that the matter has been reached, there is no point even if it continues to be concealed. I think they have all guessed it, Chu Shiren simply speak clearly. It turns out it's under the reservoir. Zhao Shui looked surprised after hearing this. I guess you built this hydropower station to hide it from others, right? Mu Qianqun asked speculatively. After hearing this, Chu Shiren nodded bitterly. She had no intention of continuing to explain, but brought the topic back on track. 2 seniors, what should we do now? Now, neither of us knows what is going on under the water, and neither of us has a water pet beast. If we go into the water rashly, we don't know what will happen. Zhao Shui did not hide it, but spoke out, own worries. They are entering the water so crazily. They must be using the sealed place to do something. We have to go down as soon as possible to stop it. Zhao Shui said with a worried tone. I'll ask the powerful crocodile to go down and check the situation. Zhu Bingqing thought for a while and then volunteered. As she spoke, She stretched out her hand and the powerful crocodile beside her quietly fell into the water. Now, no one knows what is going on under the water. At this time, it is indeed a bit difficult to ask people to go into the water to fight. The most important thing is that they are not qualified to tell others what to do or not to do. The powerful crocodile went into the water to gather information. With its attribute advantages as a water-type pet, it should not encounter any danger. While the 5 people were waiting anxiously, a series of strange sounds suddenly came from the city border area not far away. The 5 people followed the sound and soon saw a scene they would never forget. I saw all kinds of vehicles rushing over at the edge of the city, across the green belt of the road, like locusts crossing the border. It seemed like there was some kind of fatal attraction here. There should be hundreds of cars. Mu Qianqin took a cursory glance and then said. Zhao Shui also said in agreement. Now, it's a bit troublesome. They are not coming for the reservoir, right? Niu Fenjin said with some uncertainty. Definitely. At this moment, the explosion sound came out, and the seniors of the 3 families appeared together with the explosion, namely Chu Zhonghe, Niu Aihua and Zhu Guanyu. As soon as they appeared, Chu Zhonghe gave a positive reply. Then what should we do now? Zhu Bingqing asked immediately when he saw his elders appearing, not paying attention to their somewhat embarrassed postures. What else can we do? We can only try our best to stop it. While speaking, the 3 of them did not stop, but continued to attack. Hey, that's the only way it can be. Upon hearing this, Mu Qianqin sighed helplessly, and then joined the battle queue without hesitation. The matter has reached this point, and there is no point in saying anything. The top priority is that no matter what the intentions of the Jijuhui group are, we must try our best to stop them. Zhao Shui spoke, and then joined the battle. We can't rest either. Chu Shiren looked at Zhu Bingqing and Niu Fenjin and said decisively. They couldn't participate in the previous battle, but now that they can participate, they naturally won't just sit back and watch. A group of people did not hesitate to fight hundreds of robots transformed into various vehicles. The skills were thrown down as if they cost nothing, but there were still fish that slipped through the net and rushed into the reservoir one after another. The main thing is that these robots will not lose their combat effectiveness immediately after being knocked down. One after another, the mechanical octopuses emerged from the robot, and then rushed towards the reservoir regardless of their own safety. In this way, each robot is equivalent to having 2 lives, and Chu Shiren's firepower cannot fully cover them. Moreover, these mechanical octopuses are agile and extremely fast. It is not easy to hit or even destroy them. Hoo-hoo. Finally, after some time, all the robots were destroyed. At least, that's what I see in front of me. How many escaped into the reservoir is unknown. Seeing this, Chu Shiren had no choice but to put her hands on her waist and exhale helplessly. On the surface, the crisis has been resolved, but it seems that the situation has not improved much. Chu Zhong, he said. He looked at the water surface that gradually calmed down and couldn't help but frown. Wow. At this moment, a sound of water breaking suddenly sounded. The crocodile emerged from the water. Did you get any information? Zhu Bingqing asked immediately after seeing the return of the powerful crocodile. Gugu. Hearing this, the powerful crocodile shook his head humanely. Although it cannot communicate normally with Zhu Bingqing, as its beast master, the latter can still perceive some thoughts. No, with its ability, it can't get close to the core area at all. I don't know what happened under the water. Zhu Bingqing understood part of the meaning of the powerful crocodile through the soul contract, and she translated with a helpless expression. We can't stay here and wait for death. Zhu Guanyu's voice was sonorous and powerful. After saying that, he looked towards the surface of the water with burning eyes. Chu Zhonghe frowned after hearing this. Zhu Guanyu's words made sense, but how should he persuade the 2 seniors, Mu Qianqin and Zhao Shui, to take risks for their 3 families? If they don't go into the water, can the 3 of them really turn the tide? In this regard, Chu Zhonghe had no confidence at all. He knew very well how much the 3 of him weighed. Now, there are so many robots stuffed in the reservoir. There are more than 10 Overlord level ones alone. Without any information and with a blind eye, rushing into the water rashly is no different from delivering food. Don't act rashly, Chu Zhonghe reminded. To be honest, at this moment, he was also in trouble and entanglement. It's impossible not to stop it. There is nothing you can do to stop it. However, his depressed mood was soon broken. Because just as he finished speaking, the water surface of the reservoir suddenly began to ripple. It was as if some suppressed terrifying creature was about to break out of its cage. Boom! Wow! Then, there was an explosion, deafening. The water splash caused by the explosion was tens of meters high. What kind of monster is this? Niu Fenjin looked at the ferocious outline that appeared in the huge water splash and couldn't help but make a horrified sound. Beep beep beep. At the same time, a rapid prompt came from Zhao Shui's waist. The energy has almost reached the imperial level. He took out the energy detector attached to his waist and looked at the information displayed on it. A rare solemn look appeared on Zhao Shui's face. This guy must have used the unique contract secret method of their mechanical destruction society to make a leapfrog contract. Mu Qianqin was also very surprised. It was just a normal special support mission, but I encountered a pet beast of this level. She continued to analyze. Based on its condition, at most its energy has barely reached the Emperor level, but its physical strength will definitely not reach it. It can only be regarded as a pseudo-Emperor level. The analysis makes sense. After listening to Mu Qianqin's analysis, Zhao Shui laughed and pointed at the big guy in the water. So, can you deal with it? No. Mu Qianqin also looked at the big guy, and then shook her head decisively. Quote. Zhao Shui was speechless for a moment after hearing this. If you can't deal with it, what's the use of your analysis being so logical? Uncle Six, what should I do? Chu Shiren naturally heard Mu Qianqin's analysis, and she turned her attention to her elder, Chu Zhonghe. I don't know. A wry smile appeared on Chu Zhonghei's face. Obviously, this situation has exceeded their expectations. It is also beyond what their strength can handle. It's so ugly. As the water splash gradually fell, the huge silhouette was completely exposed in the water splash. Niu Fenjin couldn't help blurting out after seeing the true face of the huge silhouette of Mount Lu. It's indeed a bit disrespectful. Niu Aihua nodded in agreement. I saw that after the water splash receded, the huge silhouette turned out to be a huge monster about 50 meters high. This thing, said to be a robot, can only be identified as such from its outline. Rather than a robot, it is more like a stitched monster pieced together from various metal and mechanical components. To say it is ugly is really not unfair. Quote. Chu Shiren couldn't help but feel a black line appear on his forehead when he heard Niu Fenjin and Niu Aihua's complaints. What kind of aunt there is what kind of nephew, and they are equally unreliable. How long has it been, and you still care about what your opponent looks like? I don't know if you are crazy or heartless. Senior Niu, can we just watch it do whatever it wants? Chu Shiren was quite indignant and asked Niu Aihua. Of course we can't just watch. We have to stay away and watch, otherwise, it might be dangerous. Niu Aihua looked at Chu Shiren, nodded, and then said seriously. After hearing this, Chu Shiren staggered and almost fell down. Although the Mechanical Desecration Society has a secret method that can forcibly contract mechanical beasts across realms, there must be level restrictions. At the level of the Emperor, even if there is a secret method, it is not so easy to make a contract. I guess this guy is actually bursting with super potential. This state will definitely not last long. When this state subsides, he will be a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Zhu Guanyu analyzed objectively. We say we are analyzing objectively, but we are actually comforting ourselves. Everyone knows that this time, Jadu will launch such a large-scale attack, and there must be a plan. Although the opponent's extreme explosive state will not last long, this period of time is enough for him to do a lot of things. Ha ha ha. Not bad, not bad. This body is enough to support me to have fun. Zan Wu's voice came from the mouth of the huge mechanical suture monster. His voice was filled with frantic and violent emotions. Before he could even finish his words, he suddenly launched his attack. Thick energy rays shot out straight away. Phew, ouch. The energy beam soared into the sky and penetrated directly through the wolf vulture in midair. Zhao Shui's wolf vulture is not an ordinary wolf vulture, but a mutated wolf vulture. Otherwise, its potential would not be able to reach the high level of Overlord. However, in front of the pseudo-emperor level robot, he is still no match. With just one blow, his wings were penetrated by energy rays, leaving a bloody hole and letting out a painful wolf howl. With just one blow, the overlord high-level wolf vulture was injured, causing the latter to lose its ability to fly and be forced to land. As a beast master, Zhao Shui frowned even deeper when she saw this scene. She clenched her fists and then made a fighting gesture. Let's go together, we can't let it continue to wreak havoc here. Stay back, you are not allowed to participate in the battle here. Chu Zhonghe looked at Chu Shiren and the others and ordered. The three of them were also very wise. They withdrew from the battle circle without any hesitation. However, they did not stay very far away, but watched from a distance. Boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. The battle started quickly. The five of them worked together to deal with the pseudo-emperor level robot. All kinds of skills were flying all over the sky. The sounds of explosions, collisions, splashing water. The chaotic sounds mixed together made the battle scene seem like a doomsday disaster. Although it was 5 against 1, Chu Zhonghe and the 5 people had an absolute numerical advantage, but Chu Shiren and the 3 people standing on the outside and watching couldn't help but become worried. Because the 5 of them fell into a disadvantage as expected. The skills used by their pet beasts can often only cause some painless injuries to the suture monster robot, but the opponent's skills are different. Once they hit, they can directly and seriously injure a pet beast. One of Zhu Guanyu's pet beasts even fell into a near-death state after being hit, and had to take back the beast control space. The battle lasted for about half an hour, and the 5 people's pet beasts were all stained. Especially the 3 of Chu Zhonghe, they almost lost their fighting power. Just when Chu Zhonghe and the others were thinking about whether to withdraw from the battle, the Stitch monster robot suddenly stopped attacking. Ha ha ha, it feels so good. It feels really good to torture you little ants. Unfortunately, I don't have much time, so I have to get down to business first. After laughing a few times, it dwarfed. He actually got into the reservoir again amid the huge splash of water. In just the blink of an eye, its figure disappeared. The 5 people looked at each other, all at their wits' end, with bitter expressions on their faces. Outside, they were beaten so hard that they couldn't even lift their heads. If they entered the reservoir and fought it, they would probably die faster. They wanted to stop the action of the Stitch monster robot, but they were not stupid. There was no point in rushing forward recklessly and killing people. Just when they were at a loss, suddenly, there was a loud noise that shook the earth. Immediately afterwards, the entire reservoir was like a river toppling over, and huge waves up to 100 meters high were instantly set off. Retreat. Facing the huge wave that was hundreds of meters high, the 5 people retreated without any hesitation. They used their pet beasts one after another, used their skills, some climbed over the huge waves, and some formed shields to resist, and finally escaped this wave of attacks. After resisting this attack, Zhao Shui just took a long breath, and suddenly thought of something, and then her face suddenly changed. No, it's broken. She turned her head and looked in the direction where the huge wave swept over. That direction was the urban area of Lingshui City. Oops, this huge wave may bring huge disaster to Lingshui City. Mu Qianqin heard Zhao Shui's voice and saw the direction in which the huge wave was sweeping away, and her face also changed drastically. Everyone reacted together and were about to rush over to stop it, but at this moment, a loud and earth-shaking sound came from the reservoir again. At this time, the steps they had just taken had to pause again, because with the loud noise that shook the earth, a huge wave of 100 meters was set off again above the reservoir. In addition, among the loud noise that shook the earth, they clearly heard a heart-stopping roar of a beast. The beast's roar mixed with the loud noise made the 5 people's faces become even more ugly. The suture monster just now must have opened an unstable rift. What kind of monster are they releasing? Zhu Guanyu immediately thought of the reason, and he said with worry on his face. It's impossible. Last time, when the 3 of us joined forces to enter the unstable rift, we had already cleaned up the area around the rift. How could such a powerful extraordinary creature appear again? Niu Aihua didn't believe it and didn't want to believe it. Last time, she was the one who entered the unstable rift to explore. She must know exactly whether there are powerful extraordinary creatures around the unstable rift. When was the last time you entered the unstable rift? Mu Qianqin asked. Almost 2 years. Niu Aihua replied. After answering, she realized something and lowered her head silently. Sure enough, the next moment, Mu Qianshan's analysis hit the mark in her mind. The interior of the dimensional rift is connected, and so is the unstable rift. You haven't entered the unstable rift in nearly 2 years. What will happen inside? No one knows. Zhao Shui also added, what's more, this time, the Mechanical Destruction Society was obviously well prepared. I guess that there must be their arrangements inside the unstable rift. They should have deliberately attracted the unknown powerful extraordinary creature. After adding something, she continued and brought up the most urgent matter at the moment. Okay, let's forget about the unknown powerful extraordinary creature for now. It will probably take some time to come out of the unstable rift, so we have to deal with it first. Looking at the crisis at hand, if all these huge waves hit, the entire Lingshui city will probably be destroyed. People from the 3 major families also realized the seriousness of the matter. Niu Aihua looked at the huge water wave that suddenly rose up. While trying to resist it, she said with worry, if these water waves keep rising one after another, we will never be able to resist them all. Zhao Shui also frowned, with a solemn expression, you can resist as much as you can. She looked at the city behind her and said in a somewhat unconfident voice, the rest can only be handed over to the beast masters in the city, and after the water wave invades the city, its power should be weakened a lot. He knew very well how powerful the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau was. Just relying on those powers to block the huge waves one after another is simply a fantasy. Unless most of the civilian beast masters in the city are mobilized. At the same time, on the other side, in the southwest, at the urban-rural fusion zone, where the water slide was located, Li Qian looked at the 7 beast control balls in front of him and nodded with satisfaction. After 10 evolutions, in the end, only 7 were successful. After all, Li Qian failed to gather all the 8-headed frost fire demon salamanders of Xuanwang and the universe. But after 7 successes, he was already very satisfied. It is 20% higher than the theoretical value, which at least proves that willpower training can indeed help increase the probability of Koi evolving into a frost fire salamander. Withdrawing his gaze and looking at Tan-Tu, a lone fish in the pond, Li Qian took a long breath and said, Tan-Tu, this time, you have to adjust your mentality. After that, he no longer hesitated and walked to the edge of the pool. Tan-Tu swam over immediately. Li Qian fed him another bag of dragon bone powder, and then pointed to the location of the water slide. This time, Tan-Tu did not rush up the waterfall in a hurry. Instead, after seeing Li Qian's gesture, he rushed over firmly and unhurriedly. Seeing Tan-Tu rushing towards the water slide, Li Qian didn't waste time and walked towards the elevator behind the water slide. Because Tan-Tu needed some time to use the waterfall climbing skill to go upstream, Li Qian did not keep staring at the water slide, but glanced at it casually. This glance made him discover something unusual. This water level is a bit abnormal. Under the moonlight, he looked into the distance, and soon discovered an even bigger anomaly. It actually overflowed from the irrigation canal. The flooding of irrigation canals is obviously abnormal. After all, the weather has been nice recently and it hasn't rained much. The water level of the Lingshui River is unlikely to rise significantly. Under such circumstances, the phenomenon of water overflowing irrigation canals and even submerging fields is 100% problematic. But Li Qian definitely doesn't know what the problem is. Don't worry about it for now. The top priority is to help Tan-Tu complete his evolution. He shook his head slightly, trying hard not to think too much, and focused his attention on Tan-Tu, who was climbing the waterfall. Tan-Tu has put a lot of effort into Fadian, and will be his first pet beast. If he fails again, he doesn't know how to explain to Fadian. Fortunately, this time, Tan-Tu's momentum is very good. Even after going upstream to about 90 meters, there is still no unsustainable trend. Li Qian felt a lot more at ease when he saw this scene. In the end, the facts did not surprise him. Tan-Tu flew into the sky, jumped into the air, grabbed the wind chime fruit thrown by Li Qian, and then swallowed it in one gulp. The bright light of evolution burst out and then died down, falling into the pool at the bottom of the water slide. Wow! Huge water splashes rose into the sky. Among the water splashes, the green-scaled dragon's head leaps out, majestic and breathtaking. Tan-Tu, your merits have been fulfilled. Li Qian showed a knowing smile on his face when he saw that Tan-Tu had finally evolved successfully. In fact, he knew very well that Tantu's potential and the training he put in for it were enough to support it in completing its evolution. The reason why I failed the first time was because there was something wrong with my own mentality. After correcting your mentality, success will naturally come naturally. After a word of relief, he warned again, from now on, train well with your master and don't waste your talent. Angong. Tantu flew into the air, groaned a few times excitedly, and then rubbed Li Qian's palm affectionately. It knew very well who it relied on to transform from a koi carp into a green-scaled dragon. It could be said that without Li Qian, it would not be where it is now. Therefore, in addition to being close, he was also full of respect for Li Qian. In a certain lounge in the Jiaoyang training base, Fatian was playing with his mobile phone boredly. At this moment, it was almost 4 o'clock in the morning, and he was still not asleep. He didn't go home, but stayed in the training base. The reason he didn't fall asleep was because Tantu hadn't completed his evolution yet. He was so full of expectations that he couldn't fall asleep at all. As for staying in the training base, it was affected by the riots in the city tonight. It was much closer from the water slide to the breeding base than back home. Seeing the riots everywhere in the city, and Haonian and Tianyu wanted him to escape nearby, so they went back to the breeding base with Li Chengyang. Base. Fatian was lying on the bed, bored and playing with his mobile phone, and his thoughts were in confusion. He was thinking wildly, why has it come to this point in time and Tantu hasn't completed his evolution yet? Is there something unexpected? Single quote. Just as he was thinking wildly, suddenly, a huge amount of spiritual power poured into his mind. At the same time, waves of energy surged up in his body, washing over his limbs and bones. Great, Tantu has finally completed his evolution. Feeling the surge in mental strength and physical fitness, he jumped up from the bed with excitement. Obviously, both mental strength and physical fitness have skyrocketed because of evolutionary feedback. If he hadn't considered the time and the possibility that the riots in the city had not been completely suppressed, he would have wanted to rush directly to the water slide. After rubbing Li Qian's palm, maybe it was a night of depression, and the emotions had not been completely released, the charcoal head flew into the air again. Li Qian didn't care. At this time, it was still dark, so there was no need to worry about being seen. Of course, even if you were seen, strictly speaking, it doesn't matter. Suddenly, Tantu looked in a certain direction in midair, and then roared suddenly. This dragon's roar was very loud and sudden. It didn't sound like a vent of excitement, but more like a reminder of something. Li Qian looked at the place where Long Yin was aiming, and soon he discovered a scene that surprised him. Hey, this is it. Where did the waves come from? Lingshui City is not close to the sea. Yes, at this moment, Li Qian could already see with his naked eyes a mighty wave of water coming towards him. Even from a distance, Li Qian could tell that this wave of water must be dozens of meters high. Li Qian looked at the huge wave sweeping in with astonishing momentum, with deep doubts in his eyes. But soon, a look of surprise appeared on his face. That direction is the hydropower station. As the huge waves of water continued to approach, layers of sweat broke out on Li Qian's forehead. No, we must do our best to stop it. If this huge wave hits, Lingshui City will probably be in disaster. After staring solemnly for a moment, he made a decision. He had to take action and stop it, not only for Lingshui City, but also for himself. You know, the cultivation base is not far from here. If this wave is defeated, the breeding base that he just acquired will probably be destroyed. After making the decision, Li Qian did not hesitate. He quickly released all his pets. Qizi, Xiaoliu, Jinyi, Jinner, Jinsen, Tantu, Modian, Modi, Mokshuan, Mohuang, Moyu, Mozhou, Mahong, go, take action. Li Qian came to Qizi and rode on its dragon back, and waved his hand directly. Qizi took off into the air, followed by Jinyi, Jinner, Jinsen, and Tantu, 4 green-scaled dragons. Xiaoliu ran on the ground, and behind it, the team was even larger. Tiandi Xuanwang and Yu Zhouhong were all there. In this way, the 5 green-scaled dragons and the 8 frost-fire demon salamanders formed a team covering the sky and the ground, rushing towards the huge waves. In midair, Li Qian felt the sound of the wind whistling past his ears, and his thoughts began to run wildly. Facing such a terrifying huge wave, Even if the green-scaled dragon also has water attributes, it is unlikely to block it or make it flow back with water skills alone. Wind skills might still be useful. Besides, the fire skills of the Frostfire Demon Newt, facing this situation, are probably limited in their effectiveness when they are restrained. Ice skills are good, and if used properly, they might play a key role. As he thought about it, the outline of a battle plan slowly emerged in his mind. Of course, it was only an outline. The situation was critical, and there was no time for him to think more carefully. Li Qian didn't go far, but stopped about 300 meters away from the water slide. We chose to stop the huge waves at this place because beyond this distance, there are basically no houses behind. Moreover, on the ground, if the huge wave is allowed to travel a longer distance, its power will be reduced a bit, and Li Qian will naturally not abandon the near for the far. In fact, if it weren't for the newly repaired water slide behind him, he would have wanted to retreat some distance. That's almost it. Kizai, Tantu, Jinyi, Jinner, and Jinsen take action and use the tornado skills together. When he saw that the huge wave had swept to a place less than 500 meters away from where he was standing, Li Qian gave the order without hesitation. Upon hearing this, the five-headed green-scaled dragon headed by Kizai also used the tornado skill without hesitation. Waves of strong winds rolled up out of thin air and surrounded the five green-scaled dragons. In just the blink of an eye, 5 thick tornadoes were formed. Among them, the tornado surrounding Kizai was the strongest. The moment the tornadoes set off by the 5 hurricanes formed, they carried an indomitable momentum and rushed towards the huge waves. Although the tornado looks amazing, it is still nothing compared to the huge waves. Rumble. The 5 tornadoes collided with the huge waves without any accident. The hurricane carried a large amount of river water, forming 5 waterspouts. Under the rewind of the waterspout, the huge waves were destroyed a lot. Not only did the height drop a bit, but it seemed that even the speed slowed down a bit. Seeing this, Li Qian knew that this was his only chance. His eyes suddenly became sharp, and he shouted, "Xiao Lu, and the Xuanwang universe Hong of heaven and earth, it's up to you, Frost Breath." He had checked before that with the completion of evolution, the 7-headed frost fire salamander of the heaven, earth, Xuanwang universe, and Hong also mastered the skill of Frost Breath. It was precisely because they all mastered this skill that Li Qian came up with the idea of blocking the huge waves. Otherwise, we can only sigh helplessly, I have more than enough heart but not enough power. As Li Qian's order fell, 8 blue-white cold airs were thrust out like 8 giant swords with an indomitable momentum. The 8 cold air hit the incoming huge waves almost simultaneously. Li Qian stared intently, wanting to see what the result would be. Click, click, click. Bang bang bang. The sound of freezing kept coming, and water flow continued to break through the freezing, but in general, the situation was still contained. The second half of the huge wave and the frozen ice wall in the first half seemed to have formed a struggle and reached a stalemate. Come on, hold on, don't give up. Li Qian encouraged the 8-headed frost fire salamander headed by Xiao Lu. He knew very well that the stalemate would not end immediately. At this time, if the skill was withdrawn, the huge wave would soon break through the ice wall. Therefore, we must continuously release skills to maintain the ice wall, and try our best to freeze more river water. Li Qian didn't know whether such a terrifying huge wave was behind. If not, it would be best. If there were, this ice wall would definitely not be able to block several impacts. Wow, the sound of huge waves crashing against the ice wall kept coming. Finally, after about a minute, the crashing sound gradually subsided. This huge wave was finally resisted by him and the pet beasts working together. Without hesitation, Li Qian took Kizai, flew into the air, and looked in the direction of the western suburbs hydropower station. This sight made his scalp tingle, because another huge wave was approaching about 2 kilometers away from him. It took him a lot of effort to resist the huge wave just now, and another one would make things worse. Fortunately, this time, the ice wall formed by the frozen first huge wave should have a certain advantage over the first one. It should be able to play a big blocking role. Just when he frowned and felt that he had to go all out again this time, several cars roared over to support him. As for why it was obvious at a glance that it was a support vehicle, it was because the vehicle's painting was very obvious and it was a vehicle belonging to the Public Security Bureau. At this time, the Public Security Bureau can send vehicles to support this place, which at least means that the riots in the city have almost calmed down. Of course, this was just his guess. In fact, the riots in the city were calmed down, but it was not calmed down by the Public Security Bureau, but the Mechanical Destruction Society took the initiative to evacuate. People from the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau still don't know the reason for the withdrawal of the weapons. As for the support here, it is very obvious. With the ability of the Public Security Bureau, it is impossible to detect such a terrifying huge wave. 4 cars stopped one after another, and a group of about 10 people got out of the car. Li Qian rode on Kizai, flew into the air, took a casual glance, and immediately saw that there were old acquaintances among the people who came. Zhou Weiping and Peng Zhongyan, director of the Lingshui Municipal Public Security Bureau. Seeing a group of people from the Public Security Bureau appear, Li Qian's face lit up with joy. With their help, it would at least be much easier to deal with the huge waves. Peng Zhongyan and Zhou Weiping got out of the car and saw the huge ice wall, which was more than 50 meters high, in the shape of a mountain, and stretched for nearly a kilometer from left to right. They were as shocked as a log and froze in place. They didn't know how to describe this scene. If combined with the majestic 8-headed frostfire demon salamander and the 5-headed blue-scaled dragon in the sky, it will be even more shocking. Zhou Weiping was even more unbearable, his eyes almost fell off. When did Li Qian accumulate so much wealth? This does not even include his strength. After seeing the group of people arriving, they were a little stunned. Li Qian hurriedly reminded him in a rather anxious tone, "Director Peng, Captain Zhou, hurry up and bypass this ice wall." A group of people from the Public Security Bureau, headed by Peng Zhongyan and Zhou Weiping, reacted immediately and summoned their pet beasts one after another. Just when they started to summon the pet beasts, on the other side, Li Qian had already commanded 5 blue-scaled dragons to launch an attack. The attacks all used wind skills. Although they could not completely stop the huge waves, they also played a considerable role in delaying and weakening them. A group of people from the Public Security Bureau walked around the ice wall and saw the terrifying giant waves, and instantly understood the origin of the ice wall. Without hesitation, they also used their pet beasts to attack. With the participation of a group of people from the Public Security Bureau, especially some of the Earth-type beasts, they helped a lot, and Li Qian's pressure was greatly reduced. With such a big help coming, he became more confident in stopping the huge waves. After the skill was weakened again and again, even if there was still river water that could break through the barrier and invade the front, it would not pose any threat. The 8-headed frostfire demon salamander used ice breath at the same time and could easily freeze them. With the help of the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau, blocking the huge waves is still a bit difficult, but there are not many problems anymore. Everyone worked together to block the second huge wave without any danger. Seeing this, Li Qian did not relax, but continued to remain vigilant, looking down at the hydropower station in the distance. Facts have proved that his vigilance is still necessary. In less than 3 minutes, another huge wave rushed over. Li Qian looked at the approaching giant waves and couldn't help but make a surprised sound. Because it is visible to the naked eye that the height of the huge waves is decreasing and their power is decreasing. After thinking for a moment, he roughly guessed the reason. Nothing more than 2. First, the reservoir water capacity of the hydropower station is limited after all. After 2 huge waves hit, the water level will inevitably drop. The drop in water level will naturally lead to a weakening of the power. Secondly, it is natural that someone is blocking the source of the huge wave, which has weakened the power of the huge wave. This is a good thing. No matter what the situation is, it is definitely beneficial to Li Qian. At least he doesn't have to ask Tai Lao to take action. Tai Lao's trump card can be hidden for a while longer. Moreover, Tai Lao's duty is to protect his own safety, so for him to take action on matters of minor importance would require some favor. He frowned and didn't think much. When he saw the third wave approaching, even if it was a weakened version, Li Qian still reminded him solemnly, "Be careful, the third wave is coming." It's endless, isn't it? Zhou Weiping was familiar with Li Qian, and his personality was informal. After hearing this, he almost cursed. Seeing the ugly expressions on the faces of the security guards, Li Qian said honestly, I think the situation will be better, and the power should not be as powerful as the one just now. After everyone heard this, they breathed a sigh of relief. A moment later, a huge wave swept over, and as Li Qian said, its power weakened a lot. The height is only about 40 meters. Everyone once again showed their abilities across the 8 immortals across the sea, using various skills to smash down, coupled with the ice breath of the 8-headed frost fire demon salamander, they blocked it again. And compared to the previous 2 times, it was obviously easier. After 2 consecutive rounds, they saw how powerful the Frostfire demons were, and these Frostfire demons were still uncontracted. To a group of security guards, their attractiveness was no less than the 8 peerless beauties. Knowing that the Public Security Bureau where they were located and Li Qian's training base had reached a cooperation, it was inevitable that they would be jealous. After all, this is the Frostfire Salamander with 9th level Overlord potential. Of course, if you really can't get the Frostfire Demon Salamander, the cooperation partner, which is the blue-scaled dragon with the potential to reach the 5th level of Overlord, is also a good choice. However, at this moment, their eyes are hot, and they also know that this moment is not the time to talk about such things. The top priority is to solve the current water wave crisis and protect the entire Lingshui city. After resisting the invasion of the 3rd wave of water, it took a while before the 4th wave of water swept over. As expected, the power of this 4th wave of water dropped a lot again. Everyone worked together to get through more easily. After crossing the water wave, Director of the Public Security Bureau Peng Zhongyan looked sideways in the direction of the hydropower station and suggested, "Shall we go over and take a look?" His words were obviously meant for Li Qian. As for the people under his command, there is no need to ask at all, just give orders directly. The purpose of asking Li Qian what he thought was very simple, just to take a fancy to the 5-headed green-scaled dragon and 8-headed frost fire demon salamander in his hand. At such a point in time, 13 elite-level pet beasts with potential to be overlords are also a fighting force that cannot be underestimated. Okay, let's go take a look. Li Qian was also quite curious about what happened at the hydropower station, so after thinking for a moment, he nodded and agreed. With the decision made, everyone did not waste time and took action directly. They headed straight towards the location of the hydropower station. If they encountered a water wave on the way, they worked together to block it. As the power of the water wave becomes weaker and weaker, it is not difficult to resist it even if you get closer. And after only surviving 3 more waves of invasion, the water waves completely disappeared. The distance from the water slide to the hydropower station in the western suburbs was not very far, and it didn't take long before they arrived. Ho! Just as they got closer, a roar suddenly sounded and rushed into their ears. Buzz! This roar, like a muffled thunder, fell heavily on Li Qian's mind, making him feel dizzy and almost fell down. Shocked, after reacting, Li Qian's heart was filled with turmoil. What kind of extraordinary creature was it? It was so terrifying. Just a roar shook his mind and made him feel faint. Shaking his head and trying to regain his consciousness, Li Qian took a quick glance and found that he was not the only one who felt faint or even shaky. Several security guards who came with him also appeared this way. Situation. However, Director Peng Zhongyan, Captain Zhou Weiping and the remaining few people did not experience this situation. Li Qian guessed that resisting this sudden roar would require at least a commander-level mental strength. Li Qian and a group of people from the Lingshui City Public Security Bureau appeared near the hydropower station and immediately attracted a lot of attention. Among them are Chu Shiren, Zhu Bingqing and Niu Fenjin. Seeing Li Qian surrounded by 5 blue-scaled dragons and 8-headed frost fire demon salamanders, the 3 of them were very shocked. After the shock, there was deep worry. Chu Shiren was the first to speak, and asked anxiously and doubtfully, "Classmate Li Qian, why are you here?" Li Qian spread his hands and a wry smile appeared on his face. "The water waves here almost flooded my breeding base. I have to come and see what is going on." When Chu Zhonghe heard this, he turned to look at Li Qian and apologized awkwardly. "Sorry, we are already trying our best to resist this, but the water waves are too dense, and some of them are really powerless." After listening to Chu Zhonghe's explanation and roughly understanding the situation here, more question marks appeared on Li Qian's forehead. "Teacher Chu, Teacher Zhu, and Brother Niu, what exactly happened here?" It won't be clear for a while, so you should leave quickly. This is not the place for you to stay. Zhu Bingqing waved his hand without any intention of explaining, and this is indeed not the place for explanation. Rumble. Just as she finished speaking, suddenly, the entire hydropower station shook violently like an earth dragon turning over. And this feeling is very obvious, the shaking is coming from the center of the reservoir. What's going on? Li Qian's body staggered and he almost fell over. He looked at the reservoir where the water level had dropped significantly, confused. Whoosh! The figure flashes. In the blink of an eye, Tai Lao appeared beside him and said in a serious tone, "This is a powerful extraordinary creature attacking the unstable crack. Looking at this posture, if it rushes out, there will probably be a catastrophe here." Seeing Tai Lao's words telling him about the situation under the reservoir, Niu Aihua's eyes lit up and she immediately asked for help. "I beg you, senior, to help." When Tai Lao heard this, he couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Before I even started passing the pole, the guys were already climbing up. Ignoring Niu Aihua's plea for help, he stared at the center of the reservoir, frowning. Ho! At this moment, the heart-stopping roar of the terrifying beast sounded again. Hearing the beast's roar, Tai Lao's face became very ugly. This kind of roar, such violent energy fluctuations. No, it's a monster. This is not the first time Li Qian has heard the word Warcraft. Unlike the Warcraft in previous games, it is rumored that this is a very powerful extraordinary creature. Li Qian once obtained a magic core and gave it to Gao Yaxin. That is the energy core of Warcraft, and it is also the basis of Warcraft's powerful combat power. According to Gao Yaxin, she accepted the magic core for her teacher. According to her, her teacher, like the Black God cult, is also studying Warcraft. However, the original intention and purpose of the research are definitely different. It was precisely because of such an encounter that he learned some information about Warcraft from Gao Yaxin. Warcraft, because it lives deep in the dimensional cracks all year round, is affected by violent energy, and its soul is distorted and polluted. It is not only powerful, but also has no sense at all, and it is impossible to be contracted. It can be said that every monster is a killing machine. Precisely because he learned some information about Warcraft, when he heard that the extraordinary creature that was trying to break through the unstable rift at this moment was a Warcraft, Li Qian's first reaction was disbelief. Tai Lao, this is impossible. Didn't it say that Warcraft only lives deep in the dimensional cracks? Tai Lao shook his head. I don't know why. Logically speaking, under normal circumstances, Warcraft should not appear in such shallow-level rifts. With Tai Lao's vision and experience, almost as soon as it appeared, he could judge the rough connection level of this unstable crack based on the energy leaked from the unstable crack. It must be a shallow dimensional rift. Hearing the confusion in Tai Lao's words, Niu Aihua immediately spoke out some of the information she knew so far. Senior Tai, we suspect that there may be an arrangement by the Mechanical Destruction Society inside this unstable fissure. If that's the case, then it's understandable. Tai Lao nodded after listening to the information Niu Aihua said. In fact, this is normal. It must be that the cultists of the Mechanical Desecration Society had done something inside the dimensional rift to attract the monsters that usually only live deep in the dimensional rift. Ho! Just as Tai Lao and Niu Aihua were talking, the heart-stopping beast roar sounded again from the nearby reservoir. This time, because of his experience and precautions, the beast's roar did not have any impact on Li Qian. The beast's roar attracted everyone's attention. Li Qian followed the sound and saw a scene that surprised him. I saw bursts of blue light suddenly rising from the center of the reservoir where the water level had dropped to less than half of its original level. The blue light is scattered horizontally and vertically, divided according to rules, forming a vague pattern. This should be a formation to seal the unstable rift, but from the looks of it, the situation is not good. Tai Lao told the information about the blue light pattern as soon as he saw it. In fact, let alone Tai Lao, even Li Qian himself had some clues. Behind the pattern of blue light, a door-like aperture was vaguely visible, and Li Qian even saw a ferocious animal head within the aperture. With just a vague glance, Li Qian's heart began to beat wildly and uncontrollably. The terrifying beast head in the aperture gave him a feeling of depression, palpitations, and even suffocation. Emperor level. This must be a real emperor level monster. Looking at the terrifying extraordinary creature that was struggling to break through the unstable rift, Li Qian almost couldn't help but exclaimed. He had seen Tai Lao's Purgatory Viper and Wind and Thunder Lion, but these two pet beasts did not have such power at all. It doesn't feel like they are creatures of the same level. Not only Li Qian, but others also felt the terrifying power of this monster that was breaking through the unstable rift. It is simply not comparable to the suture monster robot that Xuanwu fused. Everyone even speculated that it might have reached the middle or high level of the Emperor. It cannot be allowed to break through this unstable rift, otherwise, at the moment of breakthrough, under the huge energy gap between the two realms, a fixed dimensional crack is likely to be washed out. Tai Lao reminded loudly. While speaking, the summoning circle lights up again next to him. In the blink of an eye, two more Overlord-level pet beasts were summoned by him. It's obvious that he is ready to go all out. Li Qian was shocked after hearing this, and instantly understood why Tai Lao was so anxious and serious. If a new dimensional rift is really flushed out, it will definitely be a disaster rather than a blessing for the Dongxia Federation at this moment. Not to mention the huge benefits that may exist in the later stage, the sudden influx of a large number of extraordinary creatures in the early stage alone is enough to destroy Lingshui City and even affect several cities around Lingshui City. In addition, it is still unknown whether the federal government can continue to exert its strength to suppress this ninth dimensional rift. Although Chu Shiren, Chu Zhonghe, and Zhao Shui were all a little embarrassed, after hearing these words, they all had solemn expressions on their faces and were ready to fight. Tai Lao glanced around, and finally focused on Zhao Shui and Mu Qianchen. This kind of thing needs to be cut through quickly. Too many people will get in the way, so just you two girls can accompany me down. As for the three people from Chu Zhonghe, they all suffered serious injuries. Although they had some strength, they would not be able to help much if they went into the water. Tai Lao simply excluded them. After hearing this, Zhao Shui and Mu Qianchen did not hesitate at all. They looked at each other and took a firm step to express their attitudes. It is our honor to fight side by side with our seniors. Although there is not much difference in strength, Zhao Shui still respects Tai Lao's behavior of stepping forward at critical moments. Just wait on the shore. If the situation goes wrong, retreat immediately. Don't hesitate, young man. Yes, it's you. With the decision made, the three of them no longer hesitated. Before entering the water, Tai Lao warned, and he turned his attention to Chu Zhonghe and confessed, take good care of Li Qian and don't allow him to suffer any damage. Otherwise, don't blame us, Shazhou Beast Control University, for stepping through the door of our Chu family to demand an explanation. Tai Lao spoke domineeringly, and Chu Zhonghe could only agree without hesitation while sweating on his forehead. Don't worry, Lao Tai, I will definitely take good care of classmate Li Qian and ensure that he is unharmed. Chu Zhonghe knew very well that if he didn't agree, the old man would probably give up and leave. Anyway, this unstable rift does not belong to him, and he is not from Lingshui City, so he can just walk away. And it is understandable that Tai Lao attaches so much importance to Li Qian. At this age, one can study the evolution methods of blue-scaled dragons and frost-fire demons. Such monsters will be cherished by Shazhou Beast Controlling University, Kyoto Beast Controlling University and Nakakai Beast Controlling University, not to mention Shazhou Beast Controlling University. Take good care of it. Thinking of this, he glanced at Li Qian, his eyes flickering, and he thought of many things for a while. According to what I learned, my niece Chu Shiren is his high school education teacher, and she seems to have a good relationship with him. With this relationship, I think there should be no problem if she wants to seek some cooperation. At the worst, you can also purchase two pet beasts, the blue scale dragon and the frostfire salamander, at market prices. Although the contact time was not long, Li Qian felt real care from Tai Lao's words. Regardless of whether this care has political purposes or not, Li Qian is very grateful. So, he reciprocated by saying, Tai Lao, please also pay attention to safety. If something cannot be done, return as soon as possible. Don't worry, old man, I cherish my life very much. Tai Lao turned around and smiled at Li Qian, showing 2 rows of big white teeth. After saying that, he commanded the pet beast to rush into the water without hesitation. After reaching the level of Tai Lao, after many contracts and evolutionary feedback, his physical fitness has become incomparable. It's easy to stay underwater for a few hours at will. Tai Lao entered the water, and Mu Qianchen and Zhao Shui did not fall behind. They followed closely and entered the water. This environment is not conducive to Tai Lao and the others fighting. Is there any way to drain all the water in the reservoir? Li Qian frowned when he saw the three of them entering the water to fight. He looked towards the Chu River and asked. Chu Zhonghe frowned and thought. Zhu Guanyu, who had been silent until now, glanced at the reservoir and replied, "This reservoir was built to block the river. It can't be drained by flood discharge alone, unless..." "Unless what?" Li Qian asked directly without thinking too much. At this time, there is no point in going around in circles and guessing. "Unless the river can be cut off." Zhu Bingqing understood what her uncle meant and added. After hearing this, Li Qian's eyes suddenly lit up. "I know what to do." After saying that, he started to act quickly under the somewhat confused eyes of everyone. He rode on Kizai's dragon's back and flew away quickly. Within a minute, he arrived at the upper reaches of the reservoir. It is basically impossible to freeze the entire reservoir, but there should be no problem in freezing a section of the Lingshui River. That's what Li Qian thought. By this time, everyone had understood his intention, and they all looked expectantly. Seeing the eight-headed frost fire demon salamander approaching in a mighty manner, they couldn't hold back and twitched the corners of their mouths. Only Li Qian can be so arrogant. Others, even Chu Shiren, her snow direwolf is of the ice type, and she can win against any of them in a single fight. But if you want to face the group of eight-headed frost fire demon salamanders, you can only avoid them. Naturally, it is impossible to freeze a section of the river. Let's go over and help. After understanding Li Qian's purpose, Chu Shiren followed him without hesitation. With the help of the direwolf, I believe that the eight-headed frostfire salamander will be able to freeze the Lingshui River more easily. After a while, the eight-headed frostfire salamander and Chu Shiren's snow direwolves all gathered on both sides of the Lingshui River. Li Qian was riding on Kizai's body, suspended in the sky above the Lingshui River. Seeing that everything was ready, he decisively issued the order, "Everyone, listen to my order, frost breath, release." As Li Qian's order was issued, the eight-headed frostfire salamander and Chu Shiren's snow direwolf acted together, displaying the frost breath skill. 9 streaks of blue-white cold air were like 9 sharp swords, piercing directly into the Lingshui River. The cold air shot in. At first, there was no change. However, after a while, the water flow slowed down obviously, and ice floes appeared on the water's surface at some point. Click, click, click. There were more and more ice floes, and in the blink of an eye, under the injection of 9 cold air, the Lingshui River was actually frozen. A section of the river, about 300 to 400 meters long, was frozen into a glacier. From the surface of the river to the bottom of the river, it was all covered with ice. It looked spectacular. With the blockage of this glacier, the water that was originally continuously poured into the reservoir instantly lost its source. Teacher Chu, increase the intensity of flood discharge. After freezing a section of the Lingshui River, Li Qian flew back again and warned. In fact, there was no need for Li Qian to remind him about this kind of thing. Chu Shiren and Chu Zhonghe took action almost as soon as the river was frozen. They came to the site of the hydropower station and pressed the flood release button. Fortunately, this area did not suffer much damage, otherwise, it would be quite troublesome to repair it. Rumble. A huge stream of water spurted out from the flood outlet, like a waterfall falling from the sky. The sound of water flow was also shocking to the eardrums. Li Qian looked at the huge flow of water, but he didn't have much confidence in his heart. I don't know if it's too late. Li Qian knew very well that the Lingshui River could not be blocked for a long time, and it could not be blocked for a long time. As the upstream river siltates, the pressure of the water flow increases, and no matter how much ice there is, sooner or later it will be washed away. In addition, the siltation of river water will also have many impacts on the upper reaches. Low-lying fields, roads, and houses may be flooded. The floodgate was pouring water crazily, and the water level was slowly falling. In the water, the formation pattern composed entirely of blue light is getting brighter and more obvious. Everyone's eyes were focused, looking at the center of the reservoir, where the sealing array was located. Boom! Wow! At this moment, a violent explosion suddenly sounded, and then, a huge figure emerged from the water, looking quite embarrassed. Everyone's vigilance did not drop, and naturally they recognized it immediately. The huge figure that suddenly broke out of the water was none other than Xuanwu's fused Stitch Monster robot. And it looks like it should have been beaten out. After his water broke, he took advantage of the inertia of flying out and prepared to escape directly. You're pretending to be cool, but you still want to escape. Niu Aihua had already disliked him, so she waited for him to recover and beat him back. How could she let him go now? When Zhu Guanyu saw this scene, he attacked without hesitation, and at the same time he analyzed, he was beaten out within 2 blows. It seems that he can't maintain that violent state. This is normal. There is obviously something wrong with that violent state. How can it be maintained for a long time? Chu Zhonghe continued, and at the same time, the movements of his hands were not polite at all. Under their command, the 4 overlord-level beasts rushed out without hesitation. After finally seizing the opportunity, they were ready to avenge their shame. How could the 3 of them let it go? So, the battle started instantly. After exiting the explosive state and being knocked out of the reservoir by Tai Lao and the others, the Xuanwu robot was in extremely poor condition and was no match for the 3 of them. Bang bang bang. Under the bombardment of a bunch of skills, the Xuanwu robot soon became dilapidated and crumbling. This guy was also a decisive person. Seeing that it was impossible for the robot body to escape, he immediately made a decision. Through the gap that was knocked away, a mechanical octopus about the size of a car emerged from the robot's chest. The mechanical octopus was extremely fast and it ran as fast as it could. Seeing this, the 3 and 4 pets did not catch up immediately. They weren't feeling pity and were ready to let this guy go, but they were just watching a show, because the direction in which the mechanical octopus escaped was exactly upstream of the reservoir. There, a group of frostfire salamanders were watching. You're on the wrong side of the gun. Seeing this scene, Li Qian's mouth curved slightly. He communicated with Xiao Lu through the soul contract. Under the leadership of Xiao Lu, the 8-headed frostfire salamander directly blocked the path of the mechanical octopus. The mechanical octopus was only agile and fast, but actually very weak. When they saw the 8-headed frost-fire salamander appearing in front of them, it and Xuanwu inside it were dumbfounded. Just in time, Frost Breath. With his stunned, confused and horrified expression, Li Qian gave the order. 8 streaks of blue-white cold air shot out quickly, without any surprise, directly hitting the fleeing mechanical octopus and freezing it into an ice sculpture. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.